morning. Welcome everybody to our school board meeting today, Washington Central Unified Union School District. We are hoping to have a timely meeting today for everybody, and hopefully get some of our sick people to home early. But as we begin tonight, I want to acknowledge that we've been having a lot of really hard conversations. Our schools are the heart of our communities. Everybody's been going around having small informational meetings, and we really understand how our schools have that hold our communities together, and we know that all of this change can feel unsettling, and we honor that as we start this meeting today. This year is really, I don't even know what to call it, like an extraordinary difficult budget year for us. We're facing real constraints that require us to carefully align staffing with enrollment and our available resources. So as a school board, just to set some guidelines, we've been receiving a lot of emails, but as a school board, we set clear parameters that are not just fiscal, but are also aligned with our strategic plan and our core beliefs. And those parameters, our administrators, so our leadership team and the superintendent use them, and they have been working diligently and thoughtfully to structure staffing in a way that continues to support all our students. These decisions are not made lightly, and we trust the professionals charged with this responsibility. We would still ask questions today, as we always do, but we trust the professionals. As we move forward tonight, we are doing our best to bring both our heart and our minds to this work. We recognize our shared responsibility and our interdependence between our communities so that we can support all our students. So today we're going to try to approve our budget together. So we're going to move forward with opening the meeting right now to public comments. I'm going to ask people to raise their hands if they have a public comment. We're going to hold you to the 90 seconds. I know that doesn't feel good, but we also have a lot of work to do today. So if you could help us keep each other accountable so that Spencer and I don't have to be doing it and it doesn't feel bad, we can help us hold each other accountable. And we're going to have some time to have questions right after the budget presentation. So if it's about budget, maybe it will be worth it to wait until you hear the budget presentation, because maybe that question will be answered through that. If you can wait, of course, you are free to ask to do a public comment right now. We will also have public comment at the end of the meeting. So with that, before I totally open it to public comment, are there any changes to the agenda, board members? We don't have any, so good, okay. So I'm going to open it to public comment. Please raise your hands. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in person, and let me see how many online. We just have one online, so I'm going to start online with one, and then I'll move to each of you. So Noah, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and then go?
Thank you. Noah Weinstein, Worcester. As a Worcester resident and Doty parent, I continue to support combining Worcester and Middlesex students at the Middlesex campus, as I believe it will give our children a better education. That said, I am also conflicted because I acknowledge the many potential impacts of school closure on our town, including the possibility of increased property taxes, decreased property values, and the reluctance of families with children to move to or remain in Worcester. Community impact was one of the configuration criteria, and it was there for a reason. The fact that it was not truly assessed by the configuration committee is unfortunate, as it appears to be the primary reason many residents of Worcester may vote no on consolidation. Right now, this decision feels like a choice between providing an adequate education for our children versus maintaining the vitality of our town. I don't think it has to be an either-or decision. On the one hand, I think the board and administration could still identify community impact concerns raised by many voters and develop a memorandum of understanding that would commit the district to mitigate some of those impacts so that the 3 elementary school model would not have such negative impacts on our town. On the other hand, if it turns out that the majority of voters in Worcester decide that the community costs of closing our school outweigh the benefits for students and teachers, then it is the district's responsibility to present a contingency budget that would allow for an adequate education of our children. At the very least, Doty would need a math teacher and interventionist. I urge our board members to not approve the contingency budget as currently presented if you do not believe it is a viable way to provide our children with an adequate education, should either town choose to keep its school open. Thank you.
Thank you, Noah. I'm going to move, I see your hand to Allison, and we're getting more people online, so I'm going to go back and forth. Ellen, do you want to start here? I think your hand went up first, and then I'll go back and forth between both, and then.
My name is Ellen Cook, and I am a high school counselor at U32. I'm in my 34th year as a high school counselor here. Dear school board members and Stephen, we, the school counselors at U32, with a collective 70 years of wisdom in the practice of school counseling, are addressing you in regards to the proposed elimination of the Director of Student Service position at U32. Our roles include working collaboratively with students and families in addition to faculty, staff, administrators, and community support services. We also have a unique lens as restorative practice trainers and facilitators regarding to this proposed cut to student services. We believe wholeheartedly that this proposed cut is short-sighted and reactive. It is not lost on us that this is an extraordinarily difficult budget year and that every department across U32 is facing cuts, including the administrative team. We tell our students every day to lead with curiosity. We are here tonight taking our own advice. So we ask you, school board members, what information led you to decide not to consider reconfiguring the current leadership team into a transitional administrative structure using the 3 current administrators to see us through this transitional period? Are you aware of the impact of eliminating this position on students, their families, and every department at U32 as well as the extended community?
I'm going to continue. My name is Kirsten Keese. I'm a middle school counselor. Our Student Services Department proudly received the 2025 Vermont School Counseling Association Excellence in School Counseling Award for our comprehensive school counseling program. This is in large part due to the fact that our programming is both proactive and visionary. The impact of the elimination of this position on us school counselors includes and is not limited to the loss of leadership, direct supervision from a skilled supervising counselor, budget and grant management, and increases the counseling caseloads from 25 to 40% depending on our current assignments, without the support of a social worker, since this position is also getting cut. The elimination of this position will impact the entire U32 community in a plethora of ways, including and not limited to reduced advocacy of students, loss of transition support, the coordination of standardized testing, including AP, pre-SAT and pre-ACT, and college and career preparation events. The impact on teachers includes master scheduling issues, including J-term, loss of support for teacher advisors, and equitable duty assignments. We urge the community to take note of this impact of the anticipated cut that would have on our school community. And we look forward to hearing your responses to our questions.
Okay. I'm going to go back and forth. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, Allison? Welcome.
My name is Allison Burns, and I live in East Montpelier. I have 3 young children, and I'm a high school teacher at U32. Thank you so much for all of your time and work to support our schools. We really appreciate it. I want to express my concern about the loss of the Director of Student Services at U32. Both budget possibilities seem to include the loss of that admin position. Lisa LaPlante keeps our school running. Out of all the administrator positions, hers is perhaps the most important to the daily and long-term functioning at U32. She is extremely efficient and has so much expertise and institutional knowledge. If her position is cut, you will ultimately need to hire more than one person to replace what she does, and you definitely cannot successfully distribute her job to other administrators and school counselors. Our students, staff, building, and community rely on her. Her position should not be cut in any budget. It would be much more efficient to spread out the principal role to multiple administrators and have a co-principal model. I would also like to express a concern about the large class sizes in the lower elementary grades at EMES. My 6-year-old's in a class of 22 at EMS, and while we love her teacher, her class is too big to make sure that everyone is getting what they need. We've heard over and over again from so many members of our community about how much they value small class sizes. However, that's not the reality at EMES, and that's not equitable. Reconfiguration would allow lower elementary students at EMES to have much smaller, more reasonable classes. I know that East Montpelier residents do not get a vote in reconfiguration, but I ask that the people who do, please remember that their votes directly affect my child's education. Thanks.
Thank you. Nate?
Buddy, my name is Nate Lovitz. I'm one of the high school counselors here at U32, and I'm going to read a statement from a teacher who couldn't be here in person tonight, Erin Galligan Baldwin. She said, "I am writing to express my strong opposition to cutting the Director of Student Services position at U32. Eliminating this role is a short-sighted decision that will lead to confusion and a drop in the quality of support for our students. The job is far too complex to be split up among other administrators. Doing so will only water down the work and make it harder for families to get clear answers. In addition, it will create a huge overload of work for the remaining counselors. We need one dedicated person to handle the critical behind-the-scenes alignment that keeps U32 running, specifically regarding the complicated logistics of overseeing student services, student scheduling, standardized testing, and the success of our J-term programming. Spreading these responsibilities across multiple offices will ruin the transparency and communication we rely on. Please keep this as a single focused position to ensure our students do not fall through the cracks. Thank you."
Thank you, Nate. Tegan? Oh, it's you, Mark. Sorry, you are labeled Tegan, but I see that it's you.
That's okay. It's long. It has both our names.
Oh, there, I see it.
That's okay.
Apologies.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Mark Brown, a teacher at U32, a parent of a U32 student and a Calais Elementary student. I'm speaking not necessarily in favor of any particular position being cut or not being cut. However, when we look at the cuts at U32, I'm speaking about tonight, but throughout the district, we look at 5 cuts to teachers at U32. More than that, a dean cut, a cut of an administrator who you're hearing a lot about. We will not be able to offer the same opportunities and services that we have offered up to this point. It may be necessary fiscally for us to make these decisions, but then we have another difficult conversation where we have to talk about what kind of opportunities or services we are no longer offering. We cannot continue to push more and more and more onto fewer people. We're going to have to change who we are and how we do things as we make these cuts. We're becoming a smaller school with a smaller staff with fewer people able to provide for our students. So that's the next conversation, no matter what decision we make tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, going back, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Jade Walker. I'm a middle school counselor here at U32, and I'm reading a statement from one of my colleagues. It is appalling to me as a WCUUSD parent, educator, and taxpayer that the school board's recommendation for cutting administrative costs across the district is to cut the position of Director of Student Services, a position that is essential to the function of U32. This position responsibilities include, but not limited to, developing the master schedule for U32 students, a schedule that has changed 7 times in the recent past. Ensuring the schedule maximizes opportunities for all students to have access to classes that helps them achieve their dreams. Coordinating and overseeing all the social emotional curriculum, compiling the communications and distribution of all career, college, and assessment information that is time sensitive and needs to be accessible for our students to ensure they are aware of the necessary requirements and opportunities. This position also oversees all students are on track for graduation. This position is the absolute most essential administrative position. Knowing the breathless pace of working at U32, I'm questioning who then, without this role, will do these critical tasks. This position impacts our students' futures most directly. The students, parents, and community should be outraged by this cut. I'm imploring you to look into other options to cut administrative costs, and cutting the position with the most direct impact of students to students, it's a shame.
Thank you. Yeah, let's see. I don't see any other hands online, so if there's other Go ahead.
Should I come to the?
Yeah, could you come to the front and use the mic, please? Thank you. Oh, you got the mic already. Yeah.
I'm Christine Fitch, a science teacher on one of the 9th, 10th grade teams here. I'm also a co-advisor for the club, The Conversation. I'm hoping that you will reconsider the cut to the Director of Student Services. You've already heard of the vast responsibilities of this role. I want to speak to just one of these responsibilities, which is the role of the Title IX coordinator. Title IX is a federal law that prohibits sexual discrimination in schools. This role is responsible for incident response, including putting supportive measures in place, reporting, and holding meetings with individual parties. Students from The Conversation, MOST, and Shazam are working to promote a safe learning environment by educating their peers about Title IX. The Title IX coordinator assists these students to make the nuances of this law more comprehensible. I'm concerned about the redelegation of the responsibilities to the current Director of Student Services holds. Our other administrators and student counselors already have a full workload. We cannot absorb this with the attention it demands. Adding on responsibilities would hinder the ability to wrap around our students to meet their social and emotional needs. It will impede the ability of staff and faculty to access our administrators and counselors, which ultimately fractures the teams we have in place for lifting up our students. Please reconsider the elimination of this role. Our students are already feeling the toll of a limited budget.
Thank you. Kara? Oh, where are you coming?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Kara. Is that okay? This is very quick. So my question, and this I think this relates to the budget, and it's just a question that I would like to hear the board discuss, is so I noticed that under the budget 3, so this is moving into the budget conversation, under budget 3, the elementary school admin seems to actually go up by 0.3 if you count assistant principals, and I'm interested in the discussion of what is the justification for increasing elementary school administration while decreasing U32 administration for reasons just said? Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. We'll be discussing that later on, and we can get into that. Anybody? Go ahead. And then Dave, are you? Okay, go ahead.
Hi, guys. You've gotten to hear some perspectives from her coworkers, but I am a past student of U32. My name's Gracie. I graduated last year. I just wanted to be able to be here to give you guys a perspective from a student and voice other students' opinions about this. Lisa has been a huge impact for a lot of students, encouraging for students that feel like they're not able to do, you know, the thought process of not being able to do something when they're very capable of it, or needing the mental encouragement to say, I can do this, I am gonna be successful, I'm going to get into tech, I'm gonna graduate. She has been that person that a lot of students have gone to, and she's a big, big person to feel supported by and safe with. I know a lot of students that are still currently here don't want to talk to other teachers. They only want to be able to talk to Lisa because Lisa is that person for them. They don't, it's hard. It's hard to trust somebody else. And Lisa is the person they trust and they want to have for the rest of the time that they're here at this school. That's all I really have to say.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and sharing with us. Dave?
Hi, I'm Dave Bezos. I'm in my 28th year of teaching design and technology here at U32. It's been my greatest honor to make U32 my life's work, and all the administrators that I've worked with have really always had my back, had the back of my students. This has been an amazing place to be and to make a career. I get scared. I'm straight up scared of the concept of losing the Director of Student Services position. Since the very beginning of my time teaching here, I have relied on student services so much for my own teaching, my scheduling, everything that's been involved with that. My role as a TA is one of my the most precious things that I've ever been involved with. I love being a TA here, and Student Services always has my back. When my son was a student here, incredible. The support that he got in choosing his college and everything, I'm just urging you to figure out another way and not cut the Student Services Director position. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Oh, okay, so I think, oh, Kari, go ahead.
Well, I feel a little bit like a broken record because a lot of mine says the exact same thing. But my name is Carrie Wilson. This is my 10th year at U32. And I just want you to be aware that I live about 45 minutes away from here. And after school, I went home, took my dog for a walk, and drove all the way back because that's how important I thought being here was or is. And, you know, I don't want to go into the whole thing because I have this whole thing read, but it does say pretty much what all the other people have spoken. I do really feel also that I'm concerned, wait a second, that I really would like you to reconsider doing the 3 administrator model. All right, obviously I'd like you to reconsider removing this director of social, oh my gosh, this is not my thing, everyone. I do not like speaking in public, and people always say, oh, you do it every day. It's like, this is totally different. Anyways, I really would like you to look at the model of the 3 administrator model. You know, currently, we all know that the 3 administrators in the building have so much knowledge, and they've been here a long time, so they have institutional knowledge and experience. And they are essentially already running the school this year. We all, you know, whatever has happened in the past, they are primarily doing that job already. And I'm just concerned and wondering why that isn't going to continue, you know. And as part of a school community, we all need to do our part, all right? I do a job sometimes that I don't really like. I'm sorry. I love teaching, by the way, but there's sometimes we get assigned things that's not our first choice, but we still do it, and we do it well, and we do what we have to. And, you know, as part of the school, when we're asked to do an assignment, we need to do it with integrity, kindness, grace, even though it's not our first choice. These 3 administrators are professionals and are currently showing they're capable of running the building, and they should be able to manage the building at U32 in the future. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, all right. I think that's it for public comments.
There's one more.
Okay.
I'm Maya Stone. Oh, no problem. And I'm a resident of East Montpelier. My kids go to East Montpelier Elementary School. And I just wanted to take the opportunity here to address all the eligible and engaged voters who will be voting on February 10th. I want to first preface this statement by emphasizing that I think you all deserve to vote, and you should all vote. I have heard many voices suggesting that they are voting in the best interest of our children. If this is your intention, I implore you to please seek out parents and teachers of current students in the district and ask them what they believe is best. Parents, I know you're tired and have little in the tank at the end of the day or the week, but please go to the local community gatherings and talk to people about the impacts of reconfiguration on the education of your children. Let us strengthen our communities and how we support each other by listening to the needs of those who stand to lose the most. Looking at the numbers, it is my belief that reconfiguration is the best way to ensure equity across towns, to integrate allied arts into its curricula, and to best support our students. So please come together, talk, and again, if your intention is to support the students of our district, please talk to the parents. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya. And Anna?
Hi. Thank you. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Anna Matheson, Calais resident and parent. My husband and I spent much of our day today putting together a post for Front Porch Forum in Calais, and I thought it important to bring it here tonight and share it with everyone so that we're all on the same page, and I'm literally going to read what we posted. As you read messages opposing closure, it's important to notice several contradictions that matter for our decision. First, concerns about property values are raised while ignoring well-documented reality that unfunded schools, not the physical location of a building, are what depress home values. Weak educational outcomes, staff instability, and diminished programming harm communities far more than where a school happens to be located. Second, an argument repeatedly blends the history and identity of the town with the function of a school. That is a false narrative. The school board's only responsibility is the quality of education it can deliver to students today and next year, not preserving buildings as symbols of local history. Those goals are not the same, and confusing them obscures the real issues. Third, some warn about uncertainty while simultaneously advocating for a path. Keeping an underfunded school open that guarantees educational harm. We already know that the outcome of that choice, fewer staff, reduced programming, leadership strain, and declining educational quality across the district. Waiting does not preserve education, it erodes it. Finally, invoking future legislative changes and calling for delays overlooks the basic fact that students only get one school year at a time. The board cannot defer responsibility for educational quality while waiting for state politics to resolve themselves. It is a hard truth. The school board's job is not to protect buildings, traditions, or town boundaries. Its sole obligation is to provide the strongest, most stable education possible for all students in our district. And when a school cannot be adequately funded, closing it is not a failure. It is an act of responsibility. Further, any messaging that implies nefarious intentions on the part of our volunteers, people who have given countless hours should be viewed with appropriate skepticism. Disagreement over difficult decisions is fair. Questioning the integrity or motives of those doing the work is not in good faith. And I just want to also add that on the car ride here, my fourth grader asked me that if Calais Elementary School closes, will she have band and chorus next year? And I had to tell her no. That if Calais Elementary School doesn't close and that's the school she goes to, she will not have the opportunity to have band and chorus. But if the school does close and she goes to the new school that is currently EMES, she will have the opportunity to have band and chorus as a 5th and 6th grader. And I'm super hoping for her sake that she has that opportunity in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Okay, we're gonna move into, oh, okay. Go ahead.
I'm Cynthia Gardner-Morse, and I just wanted to say there was a Front Porch Forum that did imply that there had been deceit in the district. That was not implied against the people who are on the configuration committee. I appreciate all the hard work of all my neighbors, and I appreciate the hard work of my school board members. What I'm looking for is an answer to what other possibilities were considered before the 2 schools scheduled to be closed were chosen, and I have not had an answer to that. So it was certainly not about any particular neighbor or anything like that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I don't see any more hands up, and I want to move us into our meeting so that we can ask more questions about the budget. So I'm going to give it to you, Stephen and Suzanne, for budget.
Yeah. Thank you for everybody who spoke. Give me 1 second, and I'm going to pull up our budget presentation. Hang on. That isn't. There it is. All right. Thank you, everybody. So this evening, Suzanne and I are going to give what we've called Draft 3, but our final budget presentation for Washington Central. We are here in our timeline of to our final day where the board votes to approve the budget so that we can provide it to the townspeople on town meeting day. And we have built our budget around our mission statement, our core values and beliefs, and our goals of our strategic plan. And through that process, we also have the board parameters that we set back in October that give guidance to our leadership team about how we should approach our budgeting process. And so we'll talk about, and in the memo that I sent out that's in the board packet as well, we address those board parameters and the work that we've done. So in our FY27 budget, this is a 3 elementary school model that the board asked for the budget for. And what this budget provides is intervention and supports for our students. So it provides full-time nursing, school counselors, and librarians, with the addition of school counseling FTEs at our elementary to provide proactive functional skills instruction. It has the conversion of some of our behavior positions in Berlin and East Montpelier into assistant principal positions. This was asked about during our public comment. That can support the supervision of the larger staffs and provides more capacity for interaction with our students and families. When we look at Berlin and East Montpelier, both of those staffs will be over 55 teachers and other staff. It's not just teachers, but all the staff. Over 55 positions at those schools. It's just over 30 for our Rumney location. And so we did not feel that there was a need for an assistant principal at that position. This budget also helps us provide more stable classroom configurations, both size and grade levels, and that was a part of our work as a configuration committee to put together a configuration that created some consistency in this programming. It also expands pre-K from 4 to 5 half-days with optional full-day care opportunities, and our per-pupil expenditures remain below the spending threshold. What this budget also does, though, it reduces staff at U32, primarily due to enrollment decline. So when you see the budget, there is a math, a science, an English, and a social studies position that are eliminated. And that is the declining enrollment in our middle school. So that is one core of 3 that we currently have. It also reduces the Director of Student Services position at U32 and moves us from what currently are 4 building-based administrators and 1 district administrator at U32 to 3 administrators at U32 that are building-based and 1 that is district-based. That district one is the special education position. It's the assistant director position. So there are still 4 administrators that will be at U32 in the future. It also calls for a reduction of approximately $446,000 in non-salary items at U32. And this is supplies, athletics, late buses, the summer curriculum work that teachers engage in, and stipends across the school. This reduces the capacity of U32 to be able to do as much purchasing as it's done in the past. So they will have to budget more carefully around more equipment, more supplies, those kinds of things. And we're working on what athletic programs will be affected by these cuts. Late buses, it's not a full elimination. It's just it's eliminating 2 of the 5 days a week of bus service there. We gave a staffing changes chart. There's a more comprehensive one in your packet that shows the staffing changes from budget 3 and contingency. And this one is just from our current to our budget 3 total. I would highlight, you see that we reduced 1.7 principal positions in the 3 elementary school model. We add 1 position, assistant principal director. So that is the 2 positions at the elementary schools. That also is the 2 assistant principals at U32. And so you also see that we have a behavior, and where it says behavior, ESP, dean, or teacher. This behavior role is filled by a variety of people throughout the district, from teacher to an ESP. We call them deans at U32. That reduction of 2 are the Berlin and East Montpelier positions, so that between those 3 top lines, That is kind of your administrative and behavioral team in each of our schools, and you're looking at it in aggregate there. And then you see that we have additional reductions throughout the district, small reductions in things like PE and health. That's just aligning the needs of 3 elementary schools versus 5 elementary schools. Same with the interventionists. While you see a reduction in the number of interventionists, that is the ability for us to have fewer people in those roles when we have fewer schools, but still serve the students in a way that we feel will meet our MLSS needs. You see things like, while we said there are full-time nurses at each of the elementary schools, there's also 1.4 FTEs of nursing here at U32. That would be a reduction in the total number of nurses that we needed, but that still provides full-day coverage at the elementary schools and a full-time and part-time nurse at U32. School counselor positions, you see that that is an increase. That was that improving our ability to deliver functional skills, proactive functional skills at our elementary schools. That's part of our MLSS program. There's the reduction of the social worker here at U32, and then the custodial, these were the cuts that we made in closing 2 buildings, but we still retain custodial support for the 2 buildings that that would not necessarily have students in them, and so that's not there is still custodial service at would be at Doty and at Callis for events and for anything that might be there, particularly at Callis if we have the pre-kindergarten there, which we believe that we will. We would have custodial support for that. And then we have some contingency planning. Essentially, a 4 or 5 elementary school model will require the district to take the resources that we just looked at in the 3-school model and distribute them across all schools. What's hard about this budget and what's hard for us to be able to comprehend is that the loss of total student population and that loss of essentially 150 students in our long-term weighted average daily membership represents a loss of $2.5 million in potential revenue for us. And so there is no room in our budget for us to increase it. We're just below the threshold. I mean, there's a little, but not much space between us and the threshold. And so if we have 3 elementary schools in U32, or if we have 5 elementary schools in U32, we are at our maximum resources in being able to stay under the threshold at this point in time. So any further reductions, right, and I'm sorry, just highlight, the reductions at U32 remain no matter what budget that we have. And any further reductions in spending will require reductions in programs and services. And that is where we would have to start making very difficult decisions. I would just say, worst case scenario, we don't have a budget that passes, and we have to reduce that budget. We then start back into those things like the school counselors at the elementary level that we added in. The full-time nursing may not be possible at every school. We may look at how do we reduce some of our additional administrative positions. At that point in time, we would be looking at where are the places that we can still cut programs and services. And this is pretty much a bare bones budget to do what we're doing. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about the dollars associated with this. And so some budget constraints and future implications. These are things to keep in mind as we think about not just this budget, but our future budget. The declining enrollment and the reduction in our long-term weighted average daily membership will not end this year. We will have an additional drop next year. I don't know what that will be at this point in time. I can't forecast that right now. But we will graduate 134 students in our senior class this year, and our incoming kindergarten class will be around 80. And so just that difference in students there is a drop in our total number of students that we will be able to serve. We also, other implications we have, the spending threshold is going to be there. The contractual increases, healthcare and inflation costs that we know keep going up. We celebrated a 7.5% increase in healthcare this year as better than what we'd seen before because it's been double digits for most of the past, but a 7.5% increase is pretty significant. And then any caps on spending coupled with a continued drop in enrollment will create pressure on our future budgets. And so I would just say the legislature has in front of it right now a bill to cap the per pupil spending at 3% for us. You will see in our budget that this per pupil spending, while we did not spend any we spent the same dollars next year in this budget as we did this year, our per pupil spending goes up by 6.75%. If this legislation were to go through, we would not be able to go that high in our per pupil spending. We would be capped at 3%, which would be an additional, in this budget, it would have amounted to an additional $1.2 million in cuts. And so the pressures of a declining enrollment and the pressures that we face from the state are things that we cannot ignore at this point in time in our district. And so budgeting for us needs to make sure that we are really looking at what are the sustainable ways that we can continue to offer the program that we offer. And we unfortunately have to make hard decisions right now on where we spend our money and what programs do we spend that on. And so as we look at this, I'm going to let Suzanne gets to talk you through the numbers on all of this, but I just want to stop. Are there some questions from this part that we could clarify right now, just from the board? And then we'll, at the end of the whole presentation, we'll take questions from the community and then back to the board. But I just want to make sure if there's anything I need to clarify.
I think let's move through the budget to make sure that they connect both and then ask questions.
Happy to do that.
Thanks.
All right, Suzanne.
Good evening. I'm Suzanne Gann, the business administrator for the district. If I'm shaking, it's because I'm freezing over here. I'm like shivering. It's not because y'all are scaring me too bad tonight. As Stephen talked about, the local spending per equalized pupil for budget draft 3 is a 6.75% increase over FY26 from 15,272 to 16,303. The spending per LTW ADM is $167 below the excess spending threshold of $16,470, which is about $371,000 total net spending below the threshold. This increase in per pupil spending is driven primarily by the 6.38% decrease in the long-term weighted average daily membership for the district. So that enrollment is a really big driver. Budget Draft 3 projects that the district plans to spend $43,115,896 in FY27, which is a decrease of about $100,000 from FY26. The revenue projections estimated decrease of about $87,000 for FY27. The net education spending of $36,181,864 is the amount that needs to be raised by property taxes and is used to develop the local spending per pupil that the homestead tax rate is based upon. This represents a 0.06% net budget decrease, which is just about as level of a budget as you can possibly get, I think. Budget Draft 3 is under the current estimated excess spending threshold. And as you can see from this slide and what Stephen's talked about, it meets most of the financial goals and most of the programmatic goals set by the board. So every town's grand list is based on the fair market values of the properties located in the town. The state of Vermont completes an equalization study every year to compare the sales prices for properties in each town with the value on town's grand lists to determine the CLA to calculate individual town tax rates. The equalized tax rate is divided by the common level of appraisal, or CLA, to develop the individual town tax rate. The annual property valuation and review report provided updated common level of appraisal information for each town since our last budget presentation, which did change some of the early projections received from the tax department in December. It was actually favorable, particularly to Calais. 4 of the 5 towns in the district saw a drop in their common level of appraisal, which ranged between 1.68% in Berlin and 9.99% in Middlesex. Worcester performed a property reappraisal, which had a positive impact on the CLA. So on the flip side, Worcester homeowners will have seen increases in the assessed values of the properties.
This is why Worcester's adjusted CLA is so much higher than the others. This chart illustrates the estimated tax rates and increases by town. The December 1 letter from the tax commissioner provided a preliminary estimate for the homestead property yield at $8,849, which is an increase from last year's final property yield of $8,596. This yield is impacted by the average expected growth in per pupil spending across the state, as well as the income yield. The non-homestead property tax rate and any usage of general fund revenues, which will be decided by the legislature. An updated projection from the Joint Fiscal Office projects $9,212 for the property tax yield and $12,711 for the income yield. This change was a result of the governor's recommendation to make a one-time transfer of $75 million from the general fund to the ed fund, which is currently receiving support from legislative leadership, but, big but, that could change. The estimated equalized homestead tax rate for draft number 3 results in an equalized homestead tax rate of 1.7697, which is a slight reduction from the current year's 1.7766. The estimated changes per $100,000 house value range from 4510 decrease in Worcester to a $249.10 per year increase in Calais. So here we take those numbers and we give you some projections on a $200,000 and a $300,000 house. The final property yield, income yield, and non-homestead tax rate is set by the legislature based on reports statewide as we progress in the budget development process and may change post-legislative session.
And so the next step for our board is to obviously have some conversation, adopt our final budget to be warned for a vote in March, and then we have to continue to work to inform and engage the community in our budget process. I think that one of the things that I would stress is difficult to explain in this budget is that we have an overall very tiny decrease from spending this year to next year. It creates, though, in the drop of enrollment, still a 6.75% increase in our per pupil expenditure, which is what is warned. And on the current estimates of taxes, which is subject to change based on legislative action, we see increases in people's taxes upwards of 12%. And so even though we're spending a little bit less money, we only have a 6.75%. I say only. We have a 6.75% increase to those to the per pupil. We see increases in taxes of 12%. And so these are difficult things to communicate and to help our community understand, but I hope that this was helpful for the board. More detailed budget is in your packet, the revised packet that you received today, and there are copies of that as well. And so how would we like to?
We were going to open it first to the public for some questions, and then the board can ask questions and public.
All right.
Are there any questions from the public on the budget presentation? Hopefully it help answer some of the questions. I'm not seeing any hands up. Otherwise, I'll move to the board directly. I'm not a teacher. I'm practicing. Go ahead. About the budget? Okay.
And then you do one online.
I want to have one.
Oh, hold on.
Hold on. It's not on. Wait. Go.
By all the people on the school board and by the community members.
Thank you. Online we have, I'm going to say it wrong, Lara Lee? Did I say that right?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I know that the budget is presented as a district-wide total. My question is, I wonder if school board members are able to ask for and see the individual school budgets, because I think it's really important that people are held accountable to the expectations that all the schools develop budgets that meet the criteria put forth. And Callis is working really hard to do that, but I want to be sure that the questions are being asked. Is everyone holding themselves accountable to the expectations that are set forth when they create their individual school budgets?
So, yeah, I think the way that I would answer that is that we allocate our funds according to student, not just student count, but student needs at each of our schools, and each of our schools develops their part of the budget based upon our MLSS system and making sure that we meet those student needs. And so as we started developing the budget, each of the schools starts with the same basic premises: how many actual students are in the building, and then therefore what does the class sizes look like? How do we make sure that we develop our class configuration? And then from there, looking at what additional supports are needed for the students that are in our buildings. And so that may vary slightly at each of our buildings. So one building may need more intervention than another based upon some of their student needs, but another one may need additional school counseling that another school may not. We leave those decisions in the hands of our principals and our staffs at those schools to work with those. And Laura Lee, I think you kind of insinuate that you've been working together as a community around your budget, and that's been happening at the other schools as well. And so what we try to do, and I think from what I would say to the board, is that we try to allocate our funds in a way that is equitable for the students and the student needs. And that's the part that I hope that the board keeps a close eye on to make sure that that is indeed what we're doing. Because that's the way that we make sure that we get the funding to the students, and the decisions about that funding are made at the school level.
So can I ask a quick follow-up then, if I'm clarifying that it's really down to the discretion of the principals to decide how much their students need and how to best support them? Or is it based on student population? That feels a little vague to me, and I'm just trying to understand.
So the way that the money is allocated, so it's so there's a base amount that we get for every pupil, and that we divide out amongst our schools. The next level is students who are free and reduced lunch, maybe ELL or multilingual learners. There's also money that is allocated to our system for school sparsity and school size. And those dollars go to the school based upon the student needs at that school. And so then the school is deciding what are those needs and how are we going to meet them. With oversight, I mean, we meet together as a team to try to make sure that we are having substantially similar services, particularly within things like art and music and PE. But we also recognize that there are slight variations in each of our schools based on the student population, and that could change from year to year slightly as well. We try to hold schools harmless around things like special education, capital, and all of those funds. Those are the ones that are what we call centralized services, but that's also along with our building and grounds, our food service. We try to keep those more centralized so that schools don't have to spend what precious dollars we have on very high needs or things that, I would say if a school needed a new boiler, we're not putting that expense upon one school, that's shared by the whole district. And so those centralized services for things like capital funds, we keep separate from the school budgets.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from public? I'm not seeing any other hands up, so I'm going to move us to the board questions. On budget, we are going to have time to also review before we do our budget approval, but this would be a good time while you have it fresh if you have specific questions. Patrick?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions about principals. On slide 7, talk about the assistant principal positions, and you had an aside while you're giving the presentation, but I want to know kind of where What's the guidance for when a school, when the elementary school is big enough to need an assistant principal, and what are we following to come up with that?
Yeah, so excuse me, so thank you. The requirements are once you have 10 certified staff members within a school, you must have a full-time principal. It can be prorated under that. We have not, well, I would just say that we have school year principals essentially in our smallest schools, so that it's not a full year contract. So but they're essentially full time because they're there during the full school year, and so the 10 certified staff is kind of the break for where you have to have a full time principal within that school.
And then an assistant, is it?
So there is the guidance on assistant principals is once you reach about 200 students. But what we have also looked at is the number of staff that are at those schools. And so when we look across our schools as a whole, what we tried to say is about 25 to 30. It's not quite 30 for anybody, but right about 30. 25 to 30 staff members per administrator, and that helps us provide the supervision for all of those staff members, because at some of our schools, if we combine East Montpelier and Calais, we'll have just a little over 60 staff members in that building. And so it's just supervision of staff alone we've asked for this. We've asked for it also across because the behavior positions that we have at Berlin and East Montpelier, converting those into an assistant principal just gives that person just a little more training, a little more ability to make some decisions. Not that we're trying to suspend or expel or do any of those kinds of things, but for some of the disciplinary processes, you have to have an administrative license to do. And so, adding that capacity to the school so that we can have a little more instructional leadership, we can have additional support for the principals in those positions where, we're essentially asking a single principal at Berlin or East Montpelier to supervise staffs over 55 people if they're the only administrators in that building. I would just say, to be transparent, this is something of an oversight, I think, around our staffing over the past several years. It's not a way that we had really looked at the staffing in the way that we did this. And as we did this reconfiguration, it gave us an opportunity to evaluate exactly how are we doing this. Things like supervision, instructional leadership, and being able to do those pieces. The reduction in staff at U32, so this is the number of administrators, there should be a question there. The reduction in staff at U32, along with the support that the Assistant Director of Special Ed gives each of the administrators approximately 25 to 30 people that they would be supervising on whole. So the staffing at U32 comes into alignment a little bit more with an administrative team of 4 people than 5. And so that's part of the reasoning behind that reduction in administration at U32 as well. And fully recognizing that it is a reduction in the position, it is not any mark on the person in that position. I want to be clear about that.
Thank you, Stephen. Any other questions regarding that? Go ahead.
Yes. So we've heard many comments tonight about Lisa LaPlante and the reduction in the directive student services at U32. I'm going to make a motion that we restore that position before we do the budget. And I know Floor's thinking that's not our role, but our role is not to be a potted plant either. It's to reflect the community values that we as board members will reflect and as liaisons with our community. Because when I see this budget, we have a 3 elementary school budget model, right? Which means that 2 principals would be out of work at the elementary schools if those schools were closed.
Correct.
But they're not being reduced. They're being put into other positions. Isn't that right?
Are you saying they're being moved into an assistant principal position?
I don't know what positions, but they're not being reduced. Is that fair to say?
I would say yes, that's fair to say. In terms of the total number of administrative positions, yes.
Okay. And so, and I think that has happened previously when we lost the principal at Calais, who became the assistant director, I think, for special ed at U32. Is that fair to say, too?
Well,
Was it
2
different?
years ago?
yeah, but that was a choice in that person to move positions. That what we didn't create.
That was a created position, though.
No.
No, that was a position that was vacated by Julia
yeah.
Pritchard when she accepted the position of director at the district office. That position was then vacant.
Then I stand corrected. But in terms of the impact that the Director of Student Services at U32 has, this is one of those positions that I think has exponential impact for the role. And, I was glad to hear you say it's no reflection on the person, because Lisa has been superb in so many different ways through 19 years here at U32, if not longer. I don't want to age you any further than you already are, Lisa. So I'm going to make that motion, and I have in mind an experience that we had where we cut a position at U32 by board vote, but money was found to restore that position for a field maintenance supervisor or something like that. And so this seems to be a much more crucial position than that, and it is one that should survive for the sake of our students and our community. So I'm going to make...
So Chris, I don't want to interrupt you, but could you wait until we are in the discussion action? Because right now we're in the report and back, so you can't make a motion right now?
Yep, thank you.
And we can have other people ask questions.
Yep.
Lay and then Michaela. Go ahead, Lay.
I guess I just want some clarification. I haven't heard much. I might have missed some stuff. But what would the role that Lisa holds, how would her responsibilities be dispersed in the future? I just haven't had that clearly said to me. And some of the people in the public have talked about how overloading some other people, trying dispersing her roles could become complicated. I just want to know what that...
Sure, it's a fair question. So I will not say that every single thing that position does will be picked up by someone else, but we will have to redistribute the workload of U32 across the remaining 3 administrators that are building-based, and we will also have to put those responsibilities on other people. Now, some of them may be an admin assistant position that picks up some of these, and I will say there's a need for training for people if they're in these roles to be able to do that work. But we will just have to redistribute that work across the remaining people within the building.
Thank you, Lay. Michaela?
So just to clarify, because there was a comment about a 3 admin model at U32, and it sounds like there are going to be 3 building-based admins. I suspect that in the budget, it's a principal and assistant principal, 2 assistants, and I think I don't remember your name, I'm sorry, Carrie was talking about was like a co-principalship maybe, and plus leaving the director of student services. Was that? No, JB's shaking his head. Can you clarify what was meant by that?
So I can probably help with that. So the current model at U32 is a principal, 2 assistant principals, and a director of student services are the building-based administrators. We also have, because it's the essentially assistant director of special education, that is covered under centralized services, that other administrative position. However, it does its role in this building. So that person is here full-time to cover all of the special education needs and services and all those kinds of things, to oversee that. So we are looking at a model that will be a principal and 2 assistant principals in the future, still with that assistant director position supporting the special education. So the different configurations of administration has been a discussion during this time, particularly with the principals resigning. So that gave us an opportunity to look at what model might we want to look at. And so after consulting with people here at U32, I spoke to others throughout the state, what models were working for various school configurations, particularly the middle school, high school models.
There are different designs out there. There are co-principal models. There are this one that we are moving forward with. So there's a variety of different models that are out there available. After consulting with all those people and looking at where we were, I decided, with consultation of the central office team as well, that we would go with a principal and 2 assistant principal model for U32 in the future. They are also supported by dean. There's a dean and a RISE coordinator that are also supporting those positions, so they assist with some of the behavioral issues as well, and some of that. And so these are not easy decisions. I mean, I will say that this kept me up at night as to what would be best, and with the 6th grade coming potentially in another year, so the next budget cycle, we'll be talking about that. We can look at that time. Do we need to adjust our model for our administrative team? Do we need to think differently about how it might look? Right now, a declining student population, we will have in the building under 600 kids attending on a regular basis here at U32 in 7th through 12th grade next year. And so the model that we chose to go with, and that I endorse as a superintendent, is the principal and 2 assistant principals, and we are currently in our search for principal in that process.
Thank you, Stephen.
So that model, though, potentially was saying don't hire another principal and keep this director of student services.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Lay.
This is going to be a dumb clarifying question, but was the 2 assistant principals the state's the recommendation? Was that the recommendation? I was wondering about why we have 2 assistant principals. Is that a recommendation by the state?
Well, that's the structure that we've chosen to go with. I would say that.
So that's just the structure that we've chosen. That's not a guideline for what we need.
Although you would have, according to the model that we look at for every 200 to 300 students, you would want an assistant principal, and so that would justify, given the number of kids that we have in the building, a principal and 2 assistant principals would be appropriate, as opposed to just a principal and an assistant principal. And whatever other roles, we do kind of lean towards that model. I know Daniel's.
I was just, I guess I'm concerned about the simultaneous loss of a principal, and as Kirsten mentioned, the social worker, and also the director of student services. I mean, I see big losses in terms of institutional memory, and I see big losses in terms of operational capacity, and I see losses in terms of the support for social and emotional learning, and I think I see losses in sort of the fabric of student culture also, and school culture, that let me be careful here. I'm not of U32, but what I see is that the student services department is very central to sort of the value that this community places on its students and how it holds its students. And that's one of the biggest pieces of U32's quote-unquote culture, as I've seen it from the outside. And I guess the simultaneous loss of these 3 positions, and you spoke of training, and we're going to be looking at a loss of capacity as we train a new principal, and that person gets oriented to our community. I guess, what's the plan? What's the plan to replace all of this?
Well, I think that the plan is that we have to do a lot of training. I mean, I don't want to dispute anything that you said. What you said is an accurate out where we are right now with the transitions at U32. And so we will have to work on training, bringing that, the person on that will be the principal making sure that they are aware from the beginning that this is the challenge that they face in building the school. I understand the concerns, and I also try to convey to you as a board and to the community as a whole is that we are facing very tough decisions, and I have heard numerous times from this board in my 12 years here that why aren't we reducing administrators, right? Every time that we have made reductions in our budgets, the first question is what administrators were reduced. And I will just say that we're trying to meet our needs at the same time we're trying to meet our obligations and our feedback. So this is a hard conversation to have. I don't want this to be about Lisa as a person, right? Because that's not what this is. But if we are arguing for individual positions in our budget, then we are not looking at the whole picture of the district. And I would just argue with the board that you have that choice if you want to change the budget, but we will have to go find cuts somewhere else. I mean, we have very little room for negotiation in terms of our costs. And so
thank you.
Natasha?
As somebody who has in the past argued, why have we not cut administrators? We're not cutting administrators because you're adding 2 administrators at the elementary level. So, I mean, that, like, we're actually not.
Well, overall, we are.
Right, but so that's not a fair statement to make, that overall we are not actually cutting administrators. Second of all, thinking about the position and not the person, when I hear all the things that that position does, and the decision has been made that that can be distributed to certificated employees to take all of that on top of what they're already doing, yet at the elementary school we're saying, and no offense to elementary administrators in any way, shape, or form, but we are saying, but you need additional help. Yet it's appropriate to take the responsibilities of an administrator here, which clearly does way more than I had any idea that role did, and say, it's okay, like, the rest of the people in the guidance department can figure it out. That's not making sense to me. So I'm having a hard time with that. Also, when I look at our parameters and I look at 1, 2, and 7, the cuts that we are making at the middle high school, Spark, our Humanity and Justice Scholar, the Director for Student Services, social worker, 1, 2, and 7, that is in direct conflict with 1, 2, and 7. And I know it says we met most of our parameters, but that's 3 of the 7 parameters. So I understand it's a tough budget season. I understand we have to make cuts. I don't understand the logic behind the cuts that we're making.
Can I ask a wondering question, Natasha? So for the elementary schools, we have right now a behavioral coach, right? The behavioral coach is assuming extra, it's now becoming an admin assistant principal. That position is now an assistant principal. So we are not having a separate behavioral coach that's been supporting the elementary schools. And I can tell you from, at least I did not participate in those conversations, but at least the history that we have had when we did the renovation at East Montpelier and when we were trying to implement our MLS, multi-layer system of supports with Fidelity at East Montpelier, when we had that amount of kids at our school when we were doing the renovation, there was an assistant principal. And the idea was sort of what Stephen was saying, do we want an instructional leader that is able to, with Fidelity, be able to inspire and be that person that brings that instructional part to the staff and not be just doing behavioral stuff. So I think that there is not fair to say that they're adding an administrator because it's kind of a wash with a wash is not the right term, but we now have a position that is a behavioral coach in the elementary schools. So I just don't want to, because now it's going to supervise staff is my understanding. Correct, because you will have more staff, right? You have, it's growing, the school is growing. I'm
Hear
just
you.
asking.
I also have worked in several elementary schools with much higher populations that had one administrator. So, I mean, I'm just, again, I know we have to make difficult decisions. I'm not trying to say that the elementary schools do not deserve what is being proposed. I'm just saying that to me, it does not make sense when we look at the kind of cuts that are also happening at the middle high school. I'm trying to make it make sense in my mind. It's not. So right now, we are having discussion and asking questions.
Yeah,
help
I was
clarify
just
that.
asking, I was just like, I was wanting to make it that it was a fair comparison, that's all. That's what I was asking, the wondering question. Stephen, do you want to answer that? And then we have Michelle and Lay. And
I'm not sure which question I'm answering at this point in time. I mean, I would agree. Like, so here's the thing is that we are making hard decisions about, like, where do we put our resources? I would say that the total job responsibilities of that director position are not going to be placed upon certified staff. It will have to go to administrative staff as well. And part of the thought process on this is that there are fewer students and there is some additional behavioral support for those assistant principals in the dean position that we have to help give them. I don't want to say that they're going to get a ton of time because nobody has enough time for anything, but I would just say that we're trying to make sure that the supports for behavior are there with the dean and assistant principal at the middle and high school level, and we're looking at how do we help with the supervision at the elementary levels. Instead of just a behavioral coach, we would have an administrator that would carry out those duties and be able to supervise as well. And I mean, I know that you can disagree with me. I'm fine with that. I'm just telling you what we were thinking, right?
You're also cutting Spark and social work, which are supports for students. So again, what you just said to me rings false because you're cutting student support. But yet you're saying it's okay that our administration is going to work out the way it is because there's student supports, but you're cutting student supports. Again, for me, the math is not mathing.
So to make those kinds of changes, we would have to find reductions in the elementary schools. And right now, was not what we were trying to do. As part of the configuration, we're trying to create 3 elementary schools that have a full range of services. But we can reduce the services at the elementary level to be able to provide those services at U32. And I know that these, I mean,
That is not what I'm saying.
I know, but I don't know. I'm at the limit of what we can spend. And so being able to further reductions, I mean, we're talking about $40,000 in cuts to athletics as well. We're talking about cutting a couple of $1,000s out of theater. Like, these are all other cuts that we're having to make because of this drastic loss in students.
So I think what I was going to say, sorry, Michelle, is connected to that, just in that. So, and I also had my hand up several times.
I know. I just.
So, but what I want to say is, what the community also needs to know is we are repeatedly told that we don't have that programming decision. We have the financial decisions. That's the road we're supposed to stay in. So in lots of information that you've provided us, which is greatly appreciated, it also is overwhelming, and I can't even look to see what is our class ratios that are going to be in place with the 3-school model, what are the numbers of teachers we're going to have in a 3-school model, 3 elementary school. I'm not even, I wasn't even aware of these cuts that are being described either. And so that, and I'm not saying it wasn't put out there, but it's not being brought to our attention. And if we were to have it brought to our attention, we're also told, bottom line, we are looking at the financial part of it. We need to trust you all to make those programming decisions. What I hear Natasha saying is clarity around, not at this last, the last time we're looking at the budget, but clarity around these are the hard decisions that have been made, and this is why, and by whom, would be helpful so that I understand. The other part of this is for us to understand as communities, if we're moving to even larger school systems, we're going to get pushed even more so away from these hard decisions. And so I think that is something we have to be aware of as well.
Thank you, Diane. Michelle, and I know, Lay, you were waiting too.
So, and I know I brought it up at the last meeting, and I was concerned then, and I understand like your reasoning why you think the assistant principals at the elementary schools, but did you like consider having, because when I do the math on what you gave us for FTEs, I get it, it doesn't include classroom paras, but we cannot have that many classroom paras. Berlin has 27.6 FTEs of staff. And so, I mean, that's not, I don't know. I just feel like, and if you take away it, like, why doesn't the director of facilities oversee all the custodians? I mean, that should be part of, he's the expert in that field. He should be the one who oversees them, which would then take away some of that staff as well. And the director of food service should oversee all the food service staff, so, because he's the expert in that field. Using those other experts that other administrators, I know, the expanded learning, early ed, oversees all the community connections. That would lower the number of staff versus having additional administration added at the elementary schools versus, the behavior coach. I get it. They spend a lot of time doing what they're doing, but I mean, there are other schools that are bigger, elementary schools that are bigger with more staff and have only one administrator for elementary levels.
So I would say that the ESP staff at Berlin, and I'm trying to see, 12 or 14. I'm not sure. I can't remember the exact. Yeah, Celia's here. Am I close on that? The ESP staff? The ESP staff at Berlin? 13. Yeah. And so there are more staff than are just listed right there as certified staff as well.
I have a.
Yeah, I think
Lay was waiting,
trying to get a hand in.
and Zach has been waiting. So I also have a question for the board, because we also have the reports, and we're going to talk about this and do motions in our operational part. If we could hold this conversation to do it in the discussion and motion part, and move into our reports, take a 5-minute break for people to go to the bathroom, and then just sit through, then do the report and stuff, and then we don't break it. We move right into, and I'll let Lay, is that okay with you?
Well, if
Or
this is
if you want to do it
informational,
now, it's okay. I'm asking the board.
Then it's like, you have to wait a whole lot longer to ask questions. And we're talking about it now, we're thinking about it now. Changing the topic will just make us lose our focus, and that's just unproductive for a meeting.
Ursula?
I'm going to point out that right now, we're just in a question and answer, so asking clarifying questions.
Yeah.
And holding our opinions and discussions maybe for the discussion part that is warned. And I get that it's broken up. And I think this is a conversation we have as a steering committee a few times, as whether or not we have board Q&A now, or we ask for it to wait to our discussion part, so that it's all part of, we are not warned to have a discussion or have motions come up. And so I think clarifying questions is what we were supposed to be doing here, and ensuring and governing ourselves to stay on task for that.
Do you have a clarifying question, Lee?
Related to what we were talking about just a moment ago? Okay, yeah. I guess, so from my knowledge, there's only one assistant principal title at U32 that I know of, at least the person I can think of, I have in my mind. Who's the other person? Because
So I'm not going to make him list, so.
Okay, sorry, like,
so-
is there a
but that's
title,
the
is there a
two
different
positions.
title that they're under?
Yeah, so
That
there
are-
are two people, JB and Amy, are the two assistant principals in the current budget. Don't tell them which one you didn't know was an assistant principal. So,
You can throw them in detention.
so those are your two assistant principals.
Okay, yeah, I forgot.
Thank you, Ray.
Thanks.
Yeah. So can we wait to have the discussion?
There's some, there may still be. some
One more
clarifying.
clarifying questions? Okay.
So having an assistant principal at Berlin, there's not going to be any increase in staff there because they're not consolidating with anyone potentially. Any increase in students, anticipated increase in students?
No.
Okay, so then I don't understand the assistant principal there. And the behavioral position that is being melded into the assistant principal position, was that the one that was being funded, or is that something different?
At one point in time, it was a grant-funded position, but it has been a part of our general budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
You also mentioned 60 positions at EMES if Callis and EM. That's not 60 full-time positions, is it? Or is it
Yes.
60 people?
60 people, mostly full-time positions. There's a few, I would say there's probably a few that are like the art or, I don't know, I can't remember
That
the
would be
exact.
licensed and non-licensed, right?
Yeah, it's licensed and non-licensed people.
And if there's a combination, how many students would be combined there? Like 190?
There'll be over 200.
200.
And so you'd have 60 staff members for that many students?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it would be, 262 students. 262 students, and on 2027, 2028, it will be back to 200, the combined. Okay. Daniel?
I'm curious about the $446,000 in non-salary items, and I was curious what the percent change is of those categories. Like, for instance, are all late buses being cut?
No.
Do we have a sense of like what percent of the late buses are cut?
It's 2 of the 5 days are what we have in cuts for that.
And the summer curriculum work is all being cut?
Yeah, it's being eliminated as well.
And the athletics budget is being cut by how much?
40,000 for the athletics program and 10,000 for their transportation.
Which is what in percentage terms?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me.
Okay. Ballpark? Don't want to venture. Okay. Okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions?
Sorry,
McKaylin.
I do, I'm
Keely?
online.
Thank you.
I more wanted, well, I guess it's still a question because I wanted to ask, piggybacking on Chris's question, on the Berlin staff in particular, the way that I read it is that the behavior ESP dean becomes an assistant principal and Berlin is still losing 0.84. We're not gaining staff at Berlin. And I just didn't want that to be a misconception. And am I right about that?
So it is essentially a swap of those two positions, the behavior coach for an assistant principal. It would be a school year assistant principal. It would not be a year-round. And so dollar-wise, that is not a significant increase between what we would see in the behavior coach role to the assistant principal role. There would be an increase in salary, definitely, but it's not a major increase. Benefits would remain about the same that we for each one of those. In the way that we estimate those costs.
Okay, thanks.
I do have,
I was going to go McKaylin.
oh,
and then we'll go you.
I think this
Sorry.
is going to be quick because I think I think you said it in the beginning and I missed it. So I understand the Berlin behaviorist going to sort of becoming this assistant principal or whatever, or it being a wash. But can you explain what at the Callis, East Montpelier?
It's the same. It's actually the same thing.
But in the table, it doesn't look like they're losing a behaviorist.
It could be that they still have a paraprofessional in that role for some form of behavior support for that. I mean, there are 200 and 80 kids and
They do have a reduction of a behavior coach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, there's a
That's
reduction of
just
behavior.
not
person.
included in the staff in the table?
I thought in
I'm
the
not sure which one.
behavior table it showed it, but
Yeah, it doesn't.
It says an interventionist? Would it be? No.
It should be behavioral coach. I don't.
Yeah.
Maybe the table's wrong.
It doesn't show under the changes from current staffing to budget 3, the school
Right.
level one. You're correct. It didn't show there.
Okay, so it's just an error in the table.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Ursula, where were we? Just so I don't lose track.
Amelia.
Amelia.
Amelia. Thank you.
So, out of curiosity, I think a lot of, I actually disagree with a lot of people who are arguing that the administrators for the elementary schools are not needed. But I don't necessarily think that that precludes us from considering Lisa LaPlante's position because of her value. And I'm just curious if the only change that we made was to add her back in, if that would push us over the threshold, and if so, would that cause us to incur penalties or not?
That
no,
would- yeah.
it wouldn't push us over the threshold to add that back in.
Thank you for answering that.
Patrick.
Yeah, I need to circle back to the assistant principal versus the student services director, and I appreciate your explanation, Stephen. But the piece I'm missing is it sounds like the decision that you and your team made was from a 3-person team where it's principal, 2 assistants, or a 3-person team where it's a principal, an assistant, and director of student services. Is that a decent summary?
I would say that's one of the possible models that was looked at, but also there was a question about having co-principal model and that position.
Right. And so I guess my question is about considering our multi-layered support systems model. Where do those assistant principal positions lie in that universe and versus a director of student services?
So your assistant principals do everything from supervise staff. So they go into classrooms, observe lessons, do all of that kind of piece. So their supports around instruction. So they're instructional leaders within the building. They're also responsible for behavioral issues within the building. They work closely with the dean and the RISE coordinator to take care of disciplinary issues. I know that they lead some of the teacher teams. So I know that at the middle school level, the core teams are led by Amy. I know at the 9th and 10th grade teams are led by JB. So they're involved in a lot of the instructional pieces of that. They're the ones who deliver some of the professional learning to those teachers. So when you think about how do we improve our practice over time, they're the ones who are helping deliver some of that professional learning. And then there's, I don't want to shortchange, there's 1,000 other things that they're asked, other duties as assigned is probably the longer list of just daily kinds of interactions and things like that. So everything, I would just say everything from being a member of the district safety team and being a part of that work to being on the curriculum council and doing that kind of work as well. So they have a wide variety of pieces. Many times it's geared towards teachers when you think about that aspect of it, and then when it comes to the behavioral and kind of student management side of that, they're kind of a jack of all trades when it comes to those things.
Okay, and then the director of student services is we heard from the public about what a lot of that role is, but that's more. Would you say that that's more of a student? I mean, it's in the name, but it's more of a student-focused position.
So the position as it currently is, the position has a caseload of students that are for school counseling, and I don't know what your number is right now. 65 students that are on their caseload for that, and then responsible also for maintaining that office. Also supervises at this point in time the school nurses as well, and is responsible for a wide range of things. So, and you heard kind of the listing there, from testing coordination to scheduling. It is a fair bit of things that will have to be redistributed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't see any other hands
Julia's
except
hand is up.
Julia's. Okay, Julia, you have a clarifying question?
A clarifying question. Is there going to be time to talk about the contingency budget?
You can ask a clarifying question on the contingency. That was part of the packet. Yeah, what they presented right now in the report. So go ahead.
So I guess some folks are wondering whether the contingency budget will provide an adequate education for students and maintain EQS standards. So I'm wondering what the thought is about that.
So we would still be able to meet minimum EQS standards with our contingency budget, but I would say that not much above that. So there would be elimination of things like band and chorus at the elementary level to be able to meet those staffing. There's some interventionists that we would not have at that level. So there are different cuts than what you would see in us combining schools. So the combining of schools allows us to find efficiencies in a few of our teaching staff, a few of our interventionists, places like that. If we are a 5-school or even a 4-school model, we essentially have to take those same resources for 3 schools and distribute them amongst the others. We can meet minimum standards of EQS, but it still requires us to keep the cuts at U32 to be able to do that as well. I hope that answered some of your question, or if not all.
Some, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other clarifying question?
Can I just add one thing back in? I think in reference to like where this comes from, when we did drafts 2A and 2B in our budget, you're looking at the revised version of those essentially for draft 3 of our budget and our contingency planning. So this is just a growth of some of that. It's preserving many of the same cuts and the reductions. We just tried to go back with a more critical eye on everything and see what else is there. So these budgets are essentially the growth out of those 2 budgets when we put those together.
Thank you, Stephen. And Julia, one thing that we have been sharing in our informational sessions that I will highlight that we won't be able to have if we have the 5-school model is we've been talking a lot about the social emotional learning interventionist. And that is a position that will not exist in the contingency model. And it's one that it's been shared with us that has been needed for years. And sometimes, and I know that Ursula would do a better job than me describing this, but it helps our students address just the basic functional skills, such as time management. We talked about disorganization, self-awareness. It's a lot of things that a lot of us take for granted, and that if our kids get this early on, they do better in school as they get older. So, and I just wanted to share that because it's something that we've been sharing, and sometimes it gets overlooked into the things that we're trying to do as we see the system as a whole.
Yeah. I would just say we're also in a transition, right? As we look at this, we're looking, how do we provide the supports at the elementary schools so that those supports don't have to be duplicated at the middle and high school level? And so by putting a few extra resources at the elementary school, the hope is that we do not have to have as much intervention at the middle and high school level. And so when you see those supports, that's some of the thinking here. Problem is that we can't necessarily maintain everything at the middle and high school at the same time that we're doing that. And that's what you're seeing in this budget.
Okay. So if there's no other clarifying questions, do you want to have a 4-minute break, or do you want to move right into reports? I had to run before because... Okay, so it's 7:54, so 8.
Give us 6 minutes.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. So I would just highlight from our, a couple of things here from our report. So the search process for the U32 principal has started, so we're looking for our search committee right now. We have a call out for that. We also need a board member as part of that committee, so make sure that we have representation across all of our constituencies. Excuse me. I just want to highlight also yesterday we had professional learning here at U32 for the entire district where we had our staffs together led by our Humanity and Justice group, primarily Natasha and Jen Miller-Arsenault, helping along with a bunch of kids that was the superstars of our day. But one of the things that we did yesterday is we shared artifacts of learning and teaching that was just wonderful to see all the great things that are happening in our district right now. And so I want to highlight just how wonderful our teachers are and the things that they brought and the great discussion it is. It was wonderful to see a kindergarten teacher looking at high school teachers' work and saying, oh, well, that ties to something that I'm doing. And just really seeing those people talk about what was happening in their classrooms. And so it was just, it was a lovely morning, and I just really want to extend my sincere appreciation both for our student panel, who did a phenomenal job, and for the people who organized it. Really just thank you for all of that. And so that was good. And that kind of goes along with our, you see in the packet, we had an impact report from our Humanity and Justice Scholar in Residence program. And so just want to make sure that we highlight, and I think one of the things that I would point to, it's on page 12, is really all of the things that this position has supported in getting started for us. And I would just also indicate that this is a contract that we will not be extending as part of this budget. That was part of our cuts, but this is work that we will need to make sure that we carry on. And I will say that a bulk of it will probably fall to our Director of Curriculum and Instruction, but we also have a very committed group of people on the Humanity and Justice Committee who help continue to make sure that this work moves forward as well. And I know that our students have gotten, we've really brought them into the fold on this committee, and they will keep us honest on making sure that we keep doing this work. And so I think it's just, it's really great to see all of the things that this helped us get started. It is now incumbent on us to make sure that we continue this work. And so I just want to make sure that I highlighted that, because it's a lot of work over several years. I remember the first discussions with Shelley and the Institute for Liberatory
Lucinda, yeah.
and Lucinda about what we could do with this role many years ago. And so while it's a loss of person and role, I think it's also, I think our district is ready to pick up that work and continue it on. So I'm very excited about that.
Are there any questions for Stephen and the COLT report or the LI report that you see there? Go ahead, Zach.
Just one question about the in-service day. It's my understanding that historically we have used in-service day after Martin Luther King Day primarily to focus on equity work. Is that correct?
Yes, and that was this was the third session of our work on educational quality standards and around. I think one of the things that I heard, I think Natasha, you said this, was just the broad way that people interpreted their work under the EQS, and that we were able to see evidence of that work and what the teachers did. And so this was our third session around building stronger curriculum around the EQS.
And given that connection to the holiday, I know that other districts do this. And I know when I was in AmeriCorps, we talked about Martin Luther King Day as being a day on and a day off and a day for service. Has there been any thought to using that holiday as an in-service day dedicated to equity work? Rather than sort of extend given sort of the tightness we have around the school year, the number of days, how far into the spring we push?
So I think we always evaluate how we use our in-service days. We have traditionally used this in-service day as a half because the second half of the day is contractually available to teachers to do grading. And so it's the morning half of the program that we have dedicated to equity. We've had a variety of things from viewing a movie around hunger and food insecurity and so we've had a variety of things that we've done around equity during that time. And I think that we would continue to do it, but we always evaluate how we use our time because it's very limited.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Natasha?
Yeah, I will echo what Stephen said about the in-service, but I just, again, want to give a shout out to the students that sat on that panel. I had the privilege of working with them over several occasions over the last couple months, and every time I worked with those students, they blew my mind. And there were statements and questions that came from them that I have not heard in many adult facilitations that I've done. And I was joking with Amy the other night, like, the kids are all right. Like, they, and if those students are any indication of the quality of instruction and education they're getting in our district, and just the quality of humans that are coming out of this district, like, we're doing something right.
Thank you, Natasha. And seeing that there are no other questions, I just want to also give a shout out to Shelley and Lucinda, especially Shelley. We are going to miss her at school. She has taught us all a lot, and a lot of us has taken her classes too, and she has made us, and I know she has made me a better person in many ways, and she has also shared her wisdom with all of us in anything, and I'll miss those reports in our cult report, and I'll miss seeing her, and her warm hugs. She makes everything feel better in some way. She just has such an ease, but so I didn't want to miss that. Now let's move to our student report before we do the principal report. I don't know why we put that like that. Yep. But sorry, I see our principals here. But go ahead, Lay. And Catherine was online, but I don't see her now. I know Elise couldn't join us, but go ahead, Lay. You are running the student show.
Okay. So I don't got much, but I got some. So recently, U32 created a volunteering club that the club continues to give back to their community or focuses on that, including participating in a recent elementary school library night, helping at the Just Basics food pantry in Montpelier. A shout out to sophomore Finn O'Connor, who was the highest scoring audition of bass players in all of New England, and he will represent U32 at the New England Music Festival on between March 19th and March 19th and the 21st of March in Guilford, New Hampshire. Also, on the 9th, U32 held its semesterly Arts Bash, where students get to show off their amazing artwork. This week, since we had the in-service and Martin Luther King Jr. Day, students are participating in J-Term, which allows the students to explore a wide range of activities, some including pickleball, CPR training, and painting. And then after this week, we will head into our second semester. And then the rest of this is going to be sports updates. On January 3rd, both the girls and boys varsity hockey teams hosted their 9th annual Pink the Rink Games to support those fighting cancer. The boys hockey team has won every single one of their games, making them a 9-0 record. They just beat Harwood tonight, 7-5. The girls hockey team has won their last 7 games, making that a 7-1 record. And they're playing Stowe tonight, right now, actually, I think. On the 29th and the 30th, the boys varsity and girls varsity basketball teams will be playing their Ballin' for a Cure games. The boys will be playing Montpelier, and the girls will be playing Randolph. The varsity boys basketball team have won the past 3 of their games, making it a 5-4 record. And the varsity girls basketball team has won their last game, 77-23 against Montpelier, with senior Paige Parker scoring 34 points alone. That improving their record to a 3-7 record. And they're playing tonight at Oxbow, which is Bradford, I believe. And both the boys and girls indoor track teams competed at States on January 10th at UVM. Both teams finished second place for their respective things. And that's it.
Thank you, Lay. That was wonderful. Any questions? Go ahead, Diane.
So, Leigh, I just want to say that I appreciate your contributions to this board. Your questions are always spot on. Your reflections are always, they go very deep. And I just so appreciate the way that you've connected us with students, the information you share, and just this very same thing. You know, we're doing something right when we see wonderful students like you.
Thank you, Lay.
I think, Lay, I think you might have missed one highlight, though. I understand there were some points scored at a recent basketball game. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that was fine. Yes.
Go ahead.
Come on.
I made my first varsity points in basketball. I guess on that note, I will say, come to those cancer awareness games. As a cancer survivor, as a childhood cancer survivor, it would mean a lot to me and a lot to a bunch of the other people who have survived cancer throughout our communities for you to show up to those games and support, I believe it was the CVMC Medical Center's treatment. So it would mean a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lay.
So I just want to add to that is the team actually got a technical foul because they rushed the court after that. So the excitement was immense. And so I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss that. Like, congrats and thank you for leading us.
Let's move now to the principal's report, and that highlight is going to be hard to...
Yeah. So we do want to highlight a couple of things from the principal's report. And so, Gillian, if you could highlight the well-being and inclusivity, kind of goes along with the work that we did yesterday.
Yes, I'd like to just echo the positive feedback. I was sitting with my staff today, and we were talking about it, and several of my staff members said it was some of the best in-service that they've ever gone to. And one of the things that they really appreciated about it was being able to see exemplars of high school work and kind of see what our babies grow up into was really lovely for a lot of the people. So I'm going to do one quick also notice for Caroline, who is suffering from the plague, and that is that as Doty and Rumney extracurriculars have been becoming more and more enmeshed because of lack of numbers, the Rumney PTNO very kindly invited Doty students to a movie night on Friday night. And the observational data is that their Doty students outnumbered Rumney students at the event, but it was it was very exciting Friday with kids getting excited to go, and there were some discussions among children and parents at pickup about that they really needed to go to this thing. So that is really exciting when you see things like that happen and people coming together. So for Doty, leading up to Martin Luther King Day, as part of what happens within kind of read-alouds within classes, begin to also draw some parallels from the Doty's belief around community and support, studying Martin Luther King. And we had our January all-school morning meeting on Friday morning. And our 5th and 6th graders continued their tradition of reading an excerpt from the I Have a Dream speech. Following that, we broke into, we call them wolf packs, which are small little pods. And in those groups, we all worked on creating I Have a Dream statements or dream statements that are up around, they're all in the entryway, and I just thought I would share a few of them, sort of representing across the grades. So I have a dream that one day people will keep the planet clean. I have a dream that one day people will be kind even if they don't agree. I have a dream that one day everyone will be safe. I have a dream that one day there will be no plastic in the oceans. I have a dream that one day everyone is nicer. I have a dream that one day everyone has food. So super pleased that those are up and that kids are leaning into these values early.
Great, thank you. Celia, yeah, thanks.
Yep.
So we want to highlight at Berlin some of their really curriculum instruction assessment work.
Well, I can't follow that up. An opportunity that we have at the end of cycle 2 of our intervention is to bring, we're actually going to bring our interventionists and our special educators, as well as our school counselor and our behavior coordinator together tomorrow to look at our data, ensure that our cycles are working, that our students are making progress. We're exiting and entering students in and out of intervention cycles in a really seamless way now. But our focus of our meeting tomorrow is actually to look at our SEL instruction and to be really clear about what our supports are. How are we as a system going to support our students and their SEL development? So it's a great opportunity, and it's some good team building and collaboration that's going to be happening in our building.
Thank you.
Thank you, Celia.
And then Callis and East Montpelier are going to highlight the community engagement and communication, and Alicia's online because.
Yeah. Do you want to get started, Alicia, and Jared's going to follow?
Sure. So East Montpelier staff are looking forward to hosting an open house for the Callis community tomorrow evening. Our doors will be open at 5:30 and we'll be serving dinner throughout the night. We've also created a scavenger hunt for families to explore all the spaces inside our building, as well as our outdoor forest. Our hope is to provide Callis an opportunity to explore, enjoy some food, ask questions, and just visualize what the building looks like. We've also prepared a short survey for families after this visit, just asking like what questions they might still have and give us any feedback or information they think will be important for us to know. And finally, I reached out to Callis families to invite them to visit our school during the school day while school is in session between now and February 10th for anyone who might want to just see what it looks like in action.
Thank you, Alicia. Jared? Oh, you're good? Yeah. You're a good team. Yeah, oh, wow. Good teamwork, guys. Okay. So that leads us into the Central Vermont Career Center report. Patrick.
Thank you. A couple things. We got a tour of the electrical program last meeting. That was fabulous. The tidiness that the student electricians are accomplishing with their gear is really remarkable. So it was a really good tour of an amazing program. We have had some changes at the board. Our board chair, Alice Farrell, moved out of Barry, where she was on the school board, and that's how she got her ticket to the Career Center board. But she moved into Berlin, so we have a new person who's interested in board membership in the town of Berlin. So we should reach out to Alice. We're in the middle of getting a feedback from this consulting company, Spark, who is looking at our community needs, as well as kind of a holistic view of the Career Center. And one of the outcomes that they have for us right now is that the Career Center is in need of a strategic communications plan. Basically, Career Center doesn't have the luxury of other traditional schools where there's a lot of sports scores and other things in the newspaper all the time, and so we have a lack of kind of exposure to the community in traditional places. And so this consulting firm, as well as the administration at the Career Center, are thinking about ways to develop a strategic communications plan, and in this sort of current media environment, and sort of ways to get the word out about what the Career Center does, so that it's not a surprise when people see, for lots of reasons, but for one, so it's not a surprise when people see a bond ask, that they actually know what the Career Center does and why it's important. Yeah, that's what I have for the Career Center. Yeah, that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. That's great. Any questions for Patrick? I see none. So I'm going to move into, we have a report from our community schools in our packet, which is great. We're so thankful for that work. I don't know if you have anything to highlight from that, Stephen, or any questions from that. It's just really important work.
Well, I would say one thing that's not highlighted in there is we just received one grant that we applied for to help with our community schools work, and we just submitted another one. So we'll be providing the board with some updates on what kind of programming can we do with those grants. The one that we just applied for, we won't know back until like mid-February, but we'll be able to update the board more on what those grants will do. But we're on our way.
Great. So thank you for that update, and congratulations on the grant, and thank you, Beck and Becca, for writing those grants. That takes a lot of time. So I'm going to move into the VSBA report. I know that we have a lot of work, but we also have a lot going on the state, so I don't want to go without giving a quick report. First, I'm going to start at the higher level. At the national level, you guys got an update through Vermont School Board Association. There is 6 letters that the legislative committee, my committee, spent a lot of time working on. Those is super easy. You click on the letter and it goes directly to our senator. And I know you're going to say, our congressional contingency is really good and it supports us. It helps. It adds to data and it helps to the overall. So take a minute. You have to click in each of the letter. You can personalize it however you want. It's in that update, and I'm happy to send it to you. And the items on that is fully funded and modernizing individuals with disability and the Education Act, which is really important. Opposing school vouchers in all their forms, because it's coming our way. Expanding and strengthening and retaining the educator workforce. All of this, I'm not going to read them all. There's 6 of them, but all of them completely are relatable to Vermont, too. And now moving into Vermont, as you know, some of you are signing your petitions, so there's a couple of board members here that have petitions. That is all due on January 26th, so please make sure to bring them. We have an East Montpelier candidate, and we heard Daniel copied me in an email from somebody from Berlin that is interested in running. We would still have an open position in Worcester. I haven't heard, but I see some. Oh, today? Oh, I didn't see it. Okay. So there might be somebody from Worcester, and there's some people from Worcester that participate in our meetings that should think about it. I'm not going to name any names right now. And then moving into Vermont, you guys have all heard, probably been reading your updates. S220 is Baruch's proposal for a cap, which would directly affect us. Sue delivered some testimony last week, and what I had to add to that was really trying to. We thought that we had done a good job about not killing that bill, but really putting perspective on that. But as you heard the governor mention again, that hopefully the cap will be going back on. That would mean, like Stephen was sharing, we have some numbers. It would mean a 3% cap for us for the next 2 years in what we can raise. Just this year, as we know, is 6 point. It would be impossible. Even trying to do the numbers right now is really scary. So we did our best to try to pull their attention out of that into sort of thinking about leaning into the work that the redistricting task force already, their recommendations and their thoughtful reforms that they have suggested, and ensuring that is a more stable and equitable education finance system, and putting their attention back to the cost drivers, especially healthcare. There's 2 op-eds for you, both of them. The Times Argus posted the op-ed in healthcare, and the VT ticker should be out tomorrow. It's a letter, and it is done with the understanding that, healthcare is a human right. So I know that I've heard from a couple of teachers that feel like this is not fair, but it affects us all. So it's not trying to take anything away from anybody, but this is work that you guys can be vocal about that too, because it's really, the cost drivers are really what is killing us right now. Last, I would say that we will be testifying on Friday. We are holding a legislative breakfast at the State House, and we'll be testifying just in our observations from Zoe Sanders' presentation on potentially using the VSBA regions for a map. The VSBA regions were not developed to be a map to use. They were developed for governance. They were the district size that balance efficiency and strong community connections for us as board members, but not developed in a way that guides we have developed 12 criteria that is grounded in a clear unified vision and mission, and that demonstrates evidence that it improves student outcomes and ensures equitable access to academic programs. And the regions these 12 regions are meant to be just to have 2 representatives per region, but it was not done for that. We gave that, we're going to be testifying, as I said, on Friday. So as our Secretary of Education, sorry, I should be saying the Secretary, she also shared a hybrid approach that combines the VSBA regional model that it was just, like I said, originally done just for internal governance, with the intention of then creating some regional high schools framework. And those regions, the way that they're describing is for educational governance. It is really unclear that model will establish a clear and coherent way of having a coherent vision for what education could look in Vermont. So I know that all sounds like just ideas, and not, but that is sort of the state that we are right now. There is no clear understanding of where we are. We are all trying to not have crazy consolidation going on right now. We know that there's no data that supports that, and if there's consolidation, that it would be done in a way that districts can be voluntarily, even if it's mandated that voluntary, you have to do some studies in between and have a framework that for the next 5 years, all of those conversations haven't happened yet. But if you guys have, any thoughts or want to participate, it's the VSBA is your organization too, so feel free to give us feedback. And Bart, myself and Bart and Emily are your representatives, and they try to reach out to you guys. They'll be holding coffee pretty soon, and we just gave them a small budget for that. Any questions? Okay, so now we can move into our budget. So the first item, I'm not looking at the packet because I was on the other, the first, sorry, it takes a minute for my packet to go back to the first page. Yeah, to budget. So we could start, it's just with a motion for the budget and then have discussion, or we can start with discussion. What is the pleasure of the board? Could we have to approve the budget tonight, right? That is our job for tonight. So I'm looking at you guys.
I'd argue it's cleaner to start with the motion, and then we can go from there.
I would love that. So do you want to make a motion?
Yeah, sorry, I just buried the number I need to put.
Okay.
Motion. I move we set the budget for the fiscal year 2026-2027 school year at $43,115,896.
Thank you. A second? Thank you, Ursula. Discussion. Chris?
So I'm going to offer an amendment to the budget to increase it with sufficient funds to reinstall the Director of Student Affairs at U32. Moving to amend the motion.
Okay, so you're proposing an amendment. Could we have a second to the amendment and we'll vote in the amendment separate?
I think that's where we go.
Okay, so moved by Chris, second by Diane, and the amendment is to include the position of the Student Services Director.
Director of Student Services at U32.
And specifically to do that by increasing the budget.
By increasing the budget. Okay. Any discussion on that amendment? And we'll be voting on the amendment only first.
The discussion would be, Suzanne, do you know?
Do you want a number?
Specifically the dollar?
I want a number.
Yes.
The new number would be $43,271,845.
Funny how you had that at the ready.
Because you asked the question before.
Got you.
Can you repeat it? Can you repeat it?
$43,271,845.
Okay, thank you.
Did you say per pupil? Let me get that one. I didn't get that one for you.
Because we were pretty close, so yeah. Okay. So any discussion on the amendment before we vote on the amendment? Okay.
I would say that I think we've had pretty thorough discussion
Yeah, okay.
on it
I've
already.
just-
So
I'm just,
yeah.
you know,
Right.
I
No,
usually
agree.
get criticized for not allowing to, okay. So all those, Daniel, see?
Oh, I just was curious if Suzanne could also tell us what our fund balance was?
Not off the top of my head, Daniel, and I'm trying to answer Diane.
And then if you could pat your head and rub your belly at the same time, that would be.
Whistle, Dixie.
So I would just caution the board against using fund balance for personnel, if that's what the thought was on that.
Yeah.
Just appreciate the
Just
sentiment.
one-time money is
Yeah.
not the good use of. Go ahead, McKinley.
So I guess I'm just curious, I support maintaining the Director of Student Services or a similar role. I was intrigued by the discussion earlier about a 3-admin team and wonder if we would need to just add her back in or if there were potential cost savings. I mean, between Amy, JB, and Lisa, there's like 70 years-ish of institutional.
So I appreciate the sentiment, and I really appreciate the 3 people that you just mentioned. I've worked with them for years, and I would ask that the board not make decisions around staffing structures and who's staffing those positions.
Agreed, and I'm just kind of, I agreed with everything Natasha said about just adding. I know there's a discussion as to whether it's adding or subtracting admin, but I guess I'm just curious how necessary it is to maintain 3 principals and the Director of Student Services. You're saying it's not because you're getting rid of the Director of Student Services.
You're talking about very different roles, and so while the position Director of Student Services is not as engaged with instructional support as an assistant principal or a principal would be. And that's no slight to, it's just not the role that we have in that position.
It's like, okay, so Zach and then Keely.
Yeah, Nicola, I'd say in response to that, I think that this cut was proposed in response to board parameters, and I think that sometimes we have to think about like what parameters. When we see the parameters conflicting with each other in ways that produce outcomes that we think go, maybe that's not the outcome we want. I can definitely see adding this role back in as a way of saying, you know what, this focused too much on the financial parameter and not enough on the SEL parameter, and that's partly on us about the parameters we set for the administration. I feel good about making that modification. I don't feel good about starting to get into the board saying, oh, well, within this set of money, I think we should allocate the roles differently. You know, I want to continue to respect the administration's expertise on that, while thinking of this more in terms of, you know, the parameters we set created a bad outcome, and to focus on the SEL parameters, you know, I'm comfortable with letting up a little bit on the financial one.
Keely?
Yeah, I think I echo what Zach just said in terms of how we're thinking of this decision. I think that U32 is about to go through a lot of changes, and we've heard from a lot of people that this would impact a lot of people, and that the repercussions would be felt throughout the school. And so I do think that as a board we can say that, to Zach's point, we would like the programming to be weighed a little bit more than the financial implications here, and it sounds like we can still do it below the budget. And it might help U32 to weather some of the other significant cuts that they're going through right now.
Any other? Okay. I also want to remind us that we're also trying to pass a budget, and we have also received emails from other people that are concerned about our spending. So with that, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I also think that also people are not going. I don't know how to explain this. I think we should be creating systems, and I feel uncomfortable right now talking about per specific people, because we love our people and we're not isolating the system that we're trying to create. So I would say that as a board member, I would still hold my superintendent, which is the only person I actually can hold accountable, accountable for all of the list of things that were read today, that they will, you know, from the Title IX coordinator, I know that there's other people qualified to do it too. Like, I would still hold my superintendent accountable with all those services being provided for our students, and that they have the liberty to create, not the liberty, but the expertise to create a system that responds to the needs of our kids right now, without necessarily telling them how to do it. And I know that we're all kind of trying to say the same thing, but we have to be very careful that we're creating systems and not just institutional knowledge for us, with all of respect for the people that are here that I do, like Ursula, and then Michaelan and Patrick.
So I guess I want to acknowledge the fact that it's really hard right now to sit here and separate the emotional side of knowing who sits in those positions, and think about the fact that our central office leadership team also had to come together and have a conversation and make a decision. And they're even closer to the people in those positions. And that we, as a board, talk about our responsibility of being fiscally responsible to our constituents. And if we're looking at caps that could come down on us at 3%, it's what is the next cliff that we're looking at. And there is a lot of change coming to U32. I will say I'm sitting here torn. And also we're asking our administrators to make decisions and stay within a budget that we've set to them that is higher than one of the financial parameters we initially gave them to begin with. And we've heard from constituents that they can't keep affording these double-digit increases.
Michaelan, thank you, Ursula, and then Patrick.
All right, point is well taken about the micromanaging and the people's specificity. But I suppose I would say I am nervous about adding anything, any monetary amount to this budget. And therefore, I would personally support adding back the Director of Student Services and maintaining only one principal in each of the 3 elementary schools. Which maybe is still some micromanaging, but I think this is just a lot of administrative money. All right, Natasha's laughing, so it must be
Patrick?
micromanaging. No.
Yeah, so I wanted to just second what you said, Flora, about separating the people from the positions. I think that's unfortunately a humongous responsibility that we have, and it's the only way that this works. I would also like to voice that I've heard from a lot of our constituents, people in my town, and some neighboring towns, that we don't spend enough money on our students. That our kids are important and their education is important, and what we need to be spending our effort on is how to spend more money to get a better education for our kids. So that opinion is certainly out there. We can't, because we'll get double taxed by the state, and I think that's horrendous. So my effort is going on to try and get that changed at the state with whatever little voice I have at the state. But we are in a box, and we can't spend as much money as maybe we would like to on our students, partially because it might not be fiscally responsible for our constituents to spend more, but also because the state won't let us. I think that this amendment that's offered is a small but significant change to the proposed budget that we've heard from lots of folks over the last week or two, really, that it's an important and would be an impactful change to their students' educational experience, and so that's why I'll support it.
Anybody else? Otherwise, we can vote on the amendment.
On the amendment,
Was there somebody else? Oh, yeah, the number of, yeah.
Okay, are you ready, Diane? Okay. Per pupil, 16,372.81 would be the new number. And the new increase per pupil is 7.21%. The equalized homestead tax rate becomes 1.7773, which is a 0.04% reduction over the current year's tax rate. So basically the same tax rate as FY26 before the CLA impacts. Then the CLA impacts cause increases ranging from a 3.2% reduction in Worcester to a 12.63% increase in Calais. And Danielle, fund balance coming into this year is $3,114,547 of unreserved funds. But that doesn't allocate for the Finance Committee and the board's discussion around how much we want to make sure we keep in that fund, right?
Right.
Zach, do you have a question for Suzanne? Can you use the mic?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure we, is that based on is that tax rate change based on the new?
Yes.
I'm sorry. My apologize. Looking at the wrong page. I thought something. I thought something seemed very off in the size of it, because I was looking at the wrong thing.
Okay. Any other clarifying questions before we vote on the amendment to increase the budget? What was the number? I have it here, to $43,271,85, right?
845.
845. Oh, Keely, sorry, Keely.
No, it's fine. I just raised it. I just want to, sorry, the numbers came quickly. So I just want to clarify the tax rates stay basically the same, and we are still below the state cap threshold.
So the tax rate is about the same as FY26. It changes a little from the draft 3 that we brought tonight.
Okay.
And yes, it is under the threshold, barely, by like $200,000.
Did you say 200,000?
No,
or
no,
200?
but it's 200.
About 2.
Yeah, but it means
Total.
That's how much we're
Right.
under, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
Nay. Okay. Abstain, and, okay, and we have one abstention. I didn't totally catch you, Michelle and Julia.
I said aye.
I said aye as well.
Okay, good. All right. So we have 2 abstentions, 2 nays, and the rest are ayes. Okay. Now moving into the actual motion of the budget, we have a new number. All those in favor of approving the budget with including this position, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, 2 abstentions. Okay, yeah, abstentions still says a lot, but so abstain, okay. 3 abstentions, okay. 3 abstentions and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm assuming everybody online is an aye? Okay. The ayes have it, so we have a new budget. Thank you, everybody. An approved budget, I have the warrant here, which now we would need to reprint, but I have the page. Oh, thank God. Okay.
Thank
so-
you, Board. I really appreciate your work and your thoughtfulness on this budget. And I just want to express my thanks to all of you for the hard work on that.
And yours as well, because
Yeah.
it's a nightmarish year with a lot of moving parts and tough decisions.
And let me just say that thanks really should go to the leadership team and the work that they do on
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Suzanne, too. Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, leadership team online and here. We really appreciate you. We see you all. Okay, what is next? Sorry, I moved
We're
myself
on
out of
the tuition rate.
Okay. So now I'm looking for a motion for the tuition rate. Would that change now? So 1 minute, we just need to finalize the numbers.
Do we have 2 tuition rates that we have to set?
Do we
Do we have 2 rates that we have to set? Elementary and secondary?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
So
so
we
I'll
just-
move. Oh, did someone do it already?
She's.
Oh, she did.
you
Oh,
go.
okay.
Go for the elementary while she's finishing the. Okay, Chris, do the elementary while she's finishing
Okay.
the
I'll move
high
that
school,
we,
right? Are you adjusting the high school one, or wouldn't matter? Okay.
It does not
it's going to be the
change.
same?
It will.
Okay.
Oh,
I move that we approve the announced tuition rate for FY 2026 to 2027 school year as $22,300 for elementary tuition and $23,351 for secondary tuition.
Second.
any discussion? Moved by Chris, second.
Keely has
by-
a question.
Go ahead, Keely. Second
Sorry,
by Evelyn.
the memo says that we have to approve this by January 15th. I was just curious about that. That's what it says in the first line, but it's the 21st.
So it has to be announced by January 15th, so
Okay.
these numbers have already been announced to other school districts.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
And they were
Finance
announced
Committee.
after the Finance Committee reviewed them and discussed them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good question, Keely. Yeah, yeah. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Okay, now we're going to move into the final budget warning language. You got a copy from in your email. Natasha, before you go, do you want to sign this so that you don't have to go back to? Okay, sorry. Okay, page 36, well, no, actually, page 36. Look at your email. So unless you have a new packet, what was in the original packet, like, which is what I have on my notes here, is not correct. Zach, could you make a motion? Is that possible? To approve the new language for, not the new language, but I put the budget warning language as,
I move we approve the budget warning language as presented.
thank you. So the only change, obviously, is the total amount of the budget, right? And then we had a discussion about adding the extra pay in Article 4 for the clerk. I actually didn't get a second. So Zach moved it, second by Patrick. And now discussion. Sorry, I was just clarifying the two changes that you should remember on that. So you okay with that?
It'll be
Yes, I'm okay with those.
Okay.
3 changes because it includes the per pupil spending and the percentage.
And the percentage, yeah. Okay, everybody comfortable with that? So you're signing the page today, and whoever is not here in person, if you could stop at the office, Melissa, this week, that would be great.
Didn't we start signing the page at the last meeting?
No, we did not sign that at the last meeting. That last meeting. No, it was for the February 10th vote.
There was some confusion about it.
That's
We
right.
never signed
Yeah,
anything.
yeah. Okay, so no more discussion, no more clarification. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. The motion has passed. Now we're going to move, I did both together, so the district clerk was part of the motion. So the budget communication part, now that we have this presentation, the board will take ownership of the slides as we usually do and do some adjustments to that. We will continue to have an informational meetings. We have had pretty good reviews from people. You know, I know that they are hard, but people have appreciated not having 90 seconds to tell us how they actually feel about things. So it's been great to engage, you know, even at times really hard, but really great to engage with them in those small meetings. So please continue to have that related to the vote, but now you have more information about the budget, and I'll be adding that to the, updating that link that I had in that document, that is just a guiding document. So for anybody online, what we just have is a guiding document for informational session. So we'll be updating the budget numbers in that document. Stephen is going to help us create a video so that we have a little video that in the past we have had in the website that talks about the budget. And then we would be facilitating our informational meeting in March for the budget. Besides that, we're having the informational meetings, just as a reminder, on the 4th and at Doty before our meeting, 5 to 6:30, and then on the 7th, 2 to 2:30 in Calais. More to come about that. What else am I forgetting?
Because of the informational meeting on the 4th, the policy committee has to reschedule. We need to make sure that policy committee members fill out the doodle poll. So if you can do that for the policy committee, we would appreciate it so we can get a rescheduled date for that group.
Yes, and that would be great. And then now that you're saying that, to remind them, the other reminder that Melissa had asked me to remind you guys and BSBA also is that we're hoping to have 100% respond to the superintendent evaluation, and we still are not quite there for board members and administrators. So if you have the link, please make sure that this is one of the most important jobs that we do. As if you need me to send, I see confusion faces. If you want me to forward that link again, it's due Friday at noon. Friday at noon. Yeah, it's been there out for 2 weeks, so it's Friday at noon. Because we will be having this discussion at our February 4th meeting in executive session with the evaluation team. Okay? Any questions on that? Right. Moving into the ed quality. Ursula, thank you for all your work. I'm giving this to you.
Okay. I'm going to start by apologizing because the report that is in our packet is the draft report that went to the committee that we made some changes to. I have in my hands, because it's my report, that I make on behalf of the committee. I just need to make that clear. But I have the adjusted report, so I will be able to pull up that and share things, and then I will I be able to share that with the full board?
Sure.
Yes, okay.
Sure.
So I will send the full board the revised report, and I'll send it to Melissa too and make sure it can get put up on the website. So this was the math and literacy report on spring data. So spring data from last year. It does not include any of the VCAP data because we did not have it at the time. You would have gotten this report normally in November, but there were a few things that got in the way. And so we're doing it now. I'm going to kind of give some highlights. We have seen progress, particularly in reading and math improvements in the reading is evidence on multiple points of measure. So we use Acadience and we use iReady reading for those measures. And we're seeing improvements in all of those assessments with our students. And we have some notable gains for our students that are eligible for free and reduced lunch and those with IEPs, which are individualized education plans, especially in grade 3, which is one of our equity indicators. So literacy for grade 3, algebra grade 8 is one of our other equity indicators. Math growth is also trending upward. We have increased stretch growth in 8th grade algebra, concepts for students on IEPs over the past 3 years. At the same time, challenges still remain. We still have proficiency rates in 8th grade algebra that are lower for students on IEP, and we still have performance differences that persist for students who are free and reduced lunch eligible and those who are receiving special education services. I also noted that we've got the Acadience tool. It's been in use 2 years now, so we were able to have a little bit more data. And then I have to scroll to my other report. Give me a moment. This is where there was a key difference in what you guys saw in your report versus like in that draft report. Also, all of the tables were bigger in the final report. But I'll get you those. In our summary of analysis, so our system successes, system challenges, system needs, those were not fully developed in the report that you have. And so I can read through what our final report had, which is we have seen an improvement in student achievement in reading, which is demonstrated in both iReady and Acadience reading assessments. We've seen an improvement in reading for our students identified for free and reduced lunch eligible, including equity indicator grade 3 reading as measured by the Acadience reading assessment tool. We have seen an improvement in reading in our students on IEPs, including our equity indicator of grade 3 reading as measured on the Acadience reading assessment tool. We've seen an improvement in student growth data for math as measured in iReady, and our grade 8 algebra concepts equity indicator has demonstrated improvement for students' achievement and stretch growth for students on IEPs, and we have seen an increase in stretch growth over the last 3 years. System challenges: when examining student achievement data for grade 8 algebra concepts for students on an IEP, there's a lack of students at or above proficiency. We continue to see differences in performance between groups of students who are and are not eligible for free and reduced lunch, and we continue to see differences in performance between groups of students who are and are not eligible for specialized education services. Under system needs, we noted that continued investment in professional development opportunities for staff and continued investment in adequate staffing to meet students' needs at all levels of our multi-level system of supports. Some of the changes in instructional and assessment practices, we are in the second year of implementing the Acadience Reading Assessment Tool. It's complementary to iReady Reading, and it aligns with Act 139. In response to concern about the time spent on student assessments, testing procedures were adjusted for the school year. All the students take the iReady math assessment in the fall and spring, but only those who do not score at or above the proficiency level will be assessed again in the winter. And so that was to give a little more time for students. Where am I? At the middle and high school level, there has been a change in schedule for this year, which resulted in classes meeting more frequently for shorter periods of time. It's new, so we don't have any data that tells us anything about it, but it's a change that we've made. EduClimber is a data tool that was bought this year and is being implemented to address layers 3 and 4 of our multi-layer systems of support. And we have talked about it at EdQuality a few times now, and how important it is for all of our staff to be able to see all of the different layers of student data together, and it helps visualize it. That'll come in other reports. Implications for the school board. Oh, I missed one. We also had a change, so a system of embedded professional development is being implemented this year. And it's one that we've talked about a couple times at EdQuality, but I've also seen it in the Colt report as well. And then implications for the school board that the committee noted were informed oversight. We, the members of the full board, need to hold ourselves and the superintendent accountable for improving outcomes, including longitudinal improvements. Ensure that we are allocating resources to continue to build and implement our local comprehensive assessment system, including resources and responsive instruction and assessment practices and associated professional learning. This includes budgetary time and resource needs. How are we using data that we are collecting? Is it the right data to allow the board to make decisions based on meeting student needs? And below that, you should still have in your copy of the draft questions that we were asking you to consider. Are students learning and thriving? What do you see that supports that? Are we using our resources effectively and equitably? What do you see that supports that? Are we making progress towards our strategic goals? What do you see that supports that? And what did you notice in the report that connects to other information presented by other committees, in Colt reports, and in principal reports? And then I open the floor.
Thank you,
Board
Ursula.
members.
And yeah, questions for, go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ursula. I'm curious, in your view and from the committee's view, what's the sort of relative weighting of the digital tools and I guess analog tools, like old-fashioned pen and paper assessment, or just conversations with teacher assessment? Like, is the data that we're getting for these charts? Where is it coming from in those two buckets?
iReady is. I'm looking at you. Give me a minute. iReady is a online diagnostic tool, and Acadience Reading is done with the teachers, so the teachers sit with the students. And iReady Reading, I have had less experience with, but I believe it's the online assessment, similar to the iReady Math. But Acadience Reading is teacher-led, so the teacher sits with the student and has questions and assessment tools that they use.
So, like, are they given equal, like the Acadience and iReady, are they given kind of equal weighting in the report?
In our report, like how we report on the data, or?
Spencer, could we get a mic for Jen? Is that okay?
Yes, please. I guess.
Thank you.
We look at data from both of them, so I guess equally.
That's why I asked the question. Is that
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that one thing that we talk about across the system is that there are multiple sources of data. We use them for different reasons, and they're all really important. We want to triangulate our data, so we always want to have multiple sources. I'd say the data that we think is the most important data is actually the day-to-day data in the classroom, the formative assessments that our teachers are engaging in all the time, some summative assessments. that's harder to show you on a regular basis. So we have common assessments in addition to the statewide assessments so that you can see other sources of data. iReady reading and Acadience reading can complement each other, especially in the older grades. In the younger grades, Acadience is the measure that we're really using because it's deeply aligned to the foundational literacy skills that we know are important and then the state requires us to measure so that we can identify early how our students are doing and we can provide the appropriate supports.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Keely.
Yeah, thanks for this. I had a question, and I feel like I'm sure that we've seen this format before, so apologies if this has been answered before. But I know that we have the equity indicators that are based on a single grade at 3rd and 8th grade. And I'm just curious how, and I know we can't see all of the data, but how you all deal or read the data, considering that you're actually looking at 2 different classes and that the number of free and reduced lunch or number of children on IEP, especially with our very small school sizes, could really alter the percentages that we're seeing. So I was just wondering if the Ed Quality Committee looks at that as well, because we see these big fluctuations, but it's not actually the same kids.
Correct. We do look at, so there's cross-sectional data, and then there's longitudinal data where you can follow children, so that we looked at this year's 3rd grade, last year's 2nd grade. So especially when we talk about that, like 3rd grade equity indicator, we typically do, remind me if I'm wrong, but we do the 3rd grade and then look forward, because in some of the assessments, especially the iReady reading, it's optional for the younger grades. So then we don't have the full student body to lead into that 3rd grade. So we can look at 3rd grade and go, based on how they were doing there, how are they doing in 4th grade, how are they doing in 5th grade? That's how we can look at them going forward longitudinally. So it's the same class as they move forward. When we talk about that 8th grade equity indicator, we can look at how they did. I think we can go back 3 years at this point, right? So we can go back 3 years and go, how have they done over the last 3 years leading up to 8th grade? And we could do the same thing as look forward, is based on that percentages, how did they go forward? It gets a little different in the high school too, because then they can have options for different math after a certain grade.
Sure. Great. And
Did
so
that
are we
answer your
seeing
question?
progress within, oh, sorry, were you still going?
No, I just wanted to make sure that that was answering the question you were
Yeah,
asking.
no, that answers it really well. I'm just curious, when since we are able to do that, that's stuff that we don't see in this report necessarily. But I'm curious if you are seeing progress also within grades as you're following children through grades. This
I'm
is
going to
mostly
say yes.
comparing different
Do
groups.
not have the data sitting in front of me
Sure.
to quote numbers.
Yeah,
And
no,
we
that's fine.
reviewed it.
It would just be it'd be nice to at least know narratively the next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think too, as a reflection from the committee, part of what we see, we don't go into the nuance and nitty gritty of it. We become aware of the systems that are in place at the schools where they get into the nitty gritty of it. So we're looking more globally. And so I think it's also so new that even if we can see 3 years, to really know if we've got the trajectory or what are the other impacts on it are still being figured out. But it certainly is on the way to it, and it helps to highlight the systems that are in place at each of our schools for them to analyze that specific data.
Thank you, Diane.
Any other questions? I don't see any other hands up. So thank you, Ursula. This is really great work. And thank you to the Equality Committee too. And thank you, Jen, for all your work. Now we're going to move into the Twinfield Communication Possible Feasibility Study, Stephen.
Yeah, so I did share a very short memo with you. So the superintendent of Caledonia Central Supervisory Union, Matthew Foster, contacted me about our interest in pursuing a merger with the Twinfield Union District. Their board has expressed an interest in discussions. I gave you some quick numbers there so you could see Twinfield's size. They're currently a pre-K-12 program, as most of you know, serving the two towns of Marshfield, Plainfield. They have 139 pre-K-5 kids, 72 grade 6-8 kids, and 76 grade 9-12 kids. And really, the question is, would you like for us to see about getting our two boards together to have a preliminary discussion about what they're thinking and what you might be thinking as well? So I just need direction from the board. This memo was way back up in the Colt report. So
Yeah.
it
Page
was-
7.
Yeah,
7,
page 7.
yeah.
Thank you.
7, thank you.
Yeah.
And Stephen did share with the steering committee, and the steering committee said that just put it on the board and on the board packet so that we can have the conversation. The idea that the steering committee was thinking about was just, let's do similarly to what we did with Montpelier, do a feasibility study so that we really understand the implications. Zach?
I would say yes. I would say that when we, I forget exactly what this was, but when we had the board meeting in East Montpelier, where we did the sort of the community engagement, looking at what people wanted to see for configuration, what people thought of it, and what people were talking about for other districts we would want to partner with. Twinfield came up in, if not every group, almost every group.
Any other questions? Patrick?
Yeah, I have a similar memory, Zach, and they're part of the same. They're part of the Career Center district as well. So
Correct.
Right. Some of our kids probably already know each other.
They've actually ridden our buses a few times to go to the Career Center. We've had some pieces like that have happened in the past as well.
Ursula and then Diane? Or you know? Oh, okay. So Diane and then Chris.
You know, we're at a discussion stage, and I think we'd be foolish to not have a discussion. So I certainly support that part of that process.
You're not surprising me by your answers on all this. I just wanted to make sure that the board is making this decision. So really, it's kind of a straw poll. I can reach back out to Matthew Foster and say, hey, talk to your boards, and we can schedule a time for us to have a conversation.
Chris?
I'd be supportive of that as well.
Okay. Michaela and then Daniel have been waiting.
Just a clarification, though, this would not be for next.
No, I would.
No.
I was gonna.
I'm just making it clear to everyone.
Oh my God.
This is a future possibility. Definitely not next year. I don't know how far in the future. It depends on all kinds of other factors.
Yeah. Good question. Oh my God. Daniel.
I just had a couple clarifying questions. So Twinfield elementary and middle school students, do they have? They don't have like tuition options to go to other high schools. They all go to Twinfield.
They're all one building. Yeah.
Right.
So
okay.
Yeah.
And I guess I was curious if we had, just based on the fact that school district mergers are a long-term process, I was curious if we had thought about the possibility of saying we would be willing to accept tuition students to our high school on a shorter timeline, potentially, if other districts wanted to discontinue their high schools and tuition kids to other schools, whether we were interested in receiving those and whether there was an opportunity to sort of stand up and say so.
So I would say to you, we already accept tuition students from districts that do not have a high school. So any district that currently has a high school would have to vote to close that high school, depending on their articles of agreement or their whatever they have. They would have to close their high schools before they could tuition out, or I guess a policy around choice. But I don't think that that's possible. I think they actually have to close to be able to tuition out. So. Yeah, I think we could easily go on record as saying we would accept any students who are from districts that tuition to high school. We would be happy to accept them.
Yeah, okay, well, I guess maybe it might look like framing a yes to places like Twinfield in terms of a menu of options, including the possibility of short-term acceptance of tuitioning students. just so they understand that that's one possibility that they could pursue. I understand that doesn't necessarily solve their small school district pressure from the State House, but I just, I'm hoping that we can make that clear that that's on the table.
I would say that I think the first step is to have a conversation with them about what they're thinking, because they belong to a supervisory union right now as a district, and so I think that we would want to have some conversations with them about what their intentions were and what they were hoping to do before we were to do that, because they already do belong to a larger organization that's separate from their school district, that supervisory union. So I don't want to get into, I think that could prove tricky for us
Fair
at
enough.
first.
Yeah.
And also, do we know if that supervisory union has any intention of reorganizing as a single school district?
So I do not know about that. I know that I asked the question of the superintendent, are they interested in being a part of a single district with us, or are they looking to join us as part of a supervisory union? The answer was they are open to all possibilities and they would just like to have a conversation. So I'm hearing from the board, and I just want to make sure that it's okay to go ahead and pursue setting up something in the future around this.
Do you have a sense of a timeline?
I do not yet, but I can. When I reach out to Matt, I'll let the board know what our timeline could be.
Great.
I'll talk to the steering committee about establishing our meeting times.
Okay. Right. So we'll move back. So now we are in negotiation committee. Chris and Diane, do you want to give a quick update?
Yeah, so we're meeting every Monday. We alternate between ESP and teachers. And the report for, let me just make sure I have the right one. The report for teachers is that the board and association discussed language around the RIF process in seniority. And with the ESP, we worked on seniority associated with RIFs. So that's our update.
Thank you, Diane. And thank you, Chris, and thank you, Patrick, for your work. And Michelle, who's online, and Stephen, and Heidi, and I'm sure I must be missing somebody, but thank you. Now personnel, page 63. Oh, no, actually.
58.
58. Yeah, 63 is the other.
So we're bringing to the board a new job description. So this is the position of Transition and Community Engagement Coordinator. This is the position that we've talked about as part of any transitions from 5 to 3 elementary schools. So this is the person to help coordinate that. I would say we're establishing this as a temporary position, and we are, once we actually know what the cost of this, it'll kind of depend upon the person. We will bring that back to the board. And I know that I said earlier that we don't want to pay for positions out of the fund balance, but this is a temporary position, so it has an end date to it. And so we also expect this to be a part-time position at this point in time. We don't believe that it would be a full-time need for this, 40 hours a week, but somewhere around the 20-hour mark per week.
Go ahead, Daniel.
We don't need to approve this, correct?
Yes,
Oh,
we do.
Okay.
Because it's a new position.
Got it.
So we need a motion.
And I was just curious, I move to approve the job description for the WCUUSD Transition and Community Engagement Coordinator.
Thank you, Daniel. Okay. Second by Zach. Discussion. Go ahead, Daniel.
I was just curious. There was a question that was posed in the context of the reconfiguration conversation about the possibility of a permanent position akin to this. And I'm wondering if in the development of this job description that came up, and whether it's the administration's point of view that like it's the same skill set or it's a different skill set, and if that's been considered, or whether you really just focused on the the short-term temporary thing.
So I think the job that you may say, is it similar to, is our community school coordinator position, who does some of these same pieces of work, but in a very different context. And so we see that there's some overlap to this position as to doing the transition and our current community schools piece, but we feel like this work needs to be a direct focus of one person for the time period of doing the transition. I would say that we would not see it as needing to be a permanent position if we continue to grow our community schools work as we are right now.
Ursula, you had your hand up before, so I didn't.
I did, but I don't think, my question was to clarify the position, the permanent position Daniel was asking about.
Okay.
But Stephen answered.
All right. Chris,
So
and then
I
Diane.
would oppose establishing this position now and holding off on any vote until after the towns have voted on February 10th as to what's going to happen. And because I think voting to establish this position now gives it kind of puts a weight, I think, that is not necessary, and I think might be perceived by the towns that are actually voting, as trying to put our thumbs on the scale. I know we voted for the 3 model school model, but the vote is really in the town's hands now, and we can do this after the vote that we have. And the clarifying question would be, if one town voted to close the school and the other town did not, we would still have this position. We'd still need it.
Yeah, so we have no intention of hiring this position prior to the vote, but it would be helpful, though, if we had the board's approval of this job description so that we could then prepare all of the materials that we need to prepare to be hiring in the event that the towns do vote to close. We could move quickly on that. That would be the only piece. But I would, maybe there's a caveat that we don't do anything with this position until after the vote, which we weren't intending on anyway.
Okay, so it kind of supports my position because, the vote is 2 weeks from now, 2.5 weeks, February 10th, and it just doesn't seem to be a rush to me for this. If all this has already been at least fleshed out in terms of what you want the terms to be.
Yeah.
So that would be my position, and just to respect the towns that are actually doing the voting.
I have 2 hands up. I have Keely, I have Daniel, and Diane, you had your hand up before. Do you want to go? And then Daniel, and then Keely?
So what resources were used to create this description?
So we built some of it off of some of the community school resources that we'd had when we did the community school coordinator job description. And then we just pulled together some of the things that we had in our transition planning that to just like the events and the timeline development and all that.
Was there any reaching out? I know Shannon Miller had described a group or somebody that had helped with the Roxbury trends.
Yeah, Up for Learning had helped with some of their work as well, and so we would be looking to them as support us in addition to this, if possible.
And then I'm concerned at approving a job description that doesn't include the wage scale. So I don't feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah, so I can understand that. Yeah.
Daniel?
Yeah, I was just going to disagree with Chris respectfully. I think in the reconfiguration conversations, a lot of skeptics have asked us to articulate our preparedness for this process and to not endorse this job description and this critical role in the process. I think, especially having seen that Stephen's developed this for us, it seems like a missed opportunity and foolish not to approve it.
Keely? Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar. I think we heard from communities over and over that this would be really critical to know that a position like this would exist were the communities to vote in favor of closing schools. I think that we can certainly put language around it that says that this is the position, or these are the this is the description of the position that would be put in place were like are if the communities do vote to close the schools. I also think, Diane, to your point, maybe we can say, to be like fully voted on later with a wage scale, but I think it's important that communities know that this is in line to happen if they do vote to close their schools, because I think it was one of the number one concerns. I would also say Daniel's second point, that maybe we add to this, that this position liaises with any community organizations that we choose to work with, because I know that several were brought up, and that was really bad wordsmithing, but perhaps someone could help me with that a little.
Thank you, Kelly. Chris had his hand up, and then your negotiations.
Yeah, I'm just, is it one full-time? Is it part-time? I mean.
No, it would be part-time. It would be a part-time position that would be non-bargaining, and so.
And is there a reason why there isn't a range kind of thought about there?
Honestly, I think when we were just putting it together, it was just simply which category is this going to fall within?
Stephen, I think I can help you out.
Okay.
That's why I brought Suzanne.
So the non-bargaining, I just pulled up a couple of the others that we have. We usually just put none there because there isn't a wage scale. Usually that is indicated whether it's an ESP wage scale or a teacher wage scale, but the non-bargaining doesn't have a wage scale. So the other positions usually just say none. I think it was before your time.
No, you have approved a couple of those, actually. I think it just clarifying a couple of things. Oh, okay, go, Chris.
I'm going to move to amend, a friendly amendment, that the position of WCUUSD Transition and Community Engagement Coordinator would not become effective until one or more of our towns voted to close school.
So can, no, don't mean to interrupt you, but can we do one thing? Can we approve the position and then make a resolution or a statement? Because there was no intention of doing it, so I don't, we can approve the position as the position, because what we're approving is the language of what we would be posting.
Can I actually say it a different way? I think maybe the important thing here is approve the job description, and then we would have to come back to you for you to approve the money for the job to exist, and because we would be asking for it from the fund balance. So I would say pending fund balance funding, and that holds it to the board entirely. You would have to approve that money.
Okay, that would be fine to me too. It's just, my concern is establishing a position becomes a presumption that this is going to happen. And
Understood. Yeah.
Diane? Diane, sorry. Diane, how do you say?
I'm honored. I was just going to reiterate some of the things that Keely and Daniel brought up. If we approve the position now and approve the job description, however we want to say it, then it means that after that February 10th vote, if we have a need for this, it can get posted and we don't have to wait a week for us to convene again. And we have a short time span. I've sat in some of those configuration committee meetings and I've listened to the people talk, and they just keep asking, like, how are we going to get this transition done in such a little amount of time? And if we push it off another week, we're just taking time away from transition work. So I think that we can go ahead and approve it and then make some resolution or motion about timing.
Just to clarify for the board in what we'll be voting on, we're going to vote on the job description right now, and we are all agreeing that we would come back once we have a dollar amount. But right now they can move forward in knowing that there's a job description. So they are ready to post the position when we approve the amount of money. Is that clear, or do you need that in a full motion? Could we just approve the job description to start with? As Daniel and Zach recommended?
I'm in fear of acting foolish in front of Daniel again.
So don't.
call the question.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I oppose.
Okay, any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. I'm gonna move us forward because we still have some
Approval of minutes.
approval of minutes and
And we had no other
We-
approving new teachers' resignations, et
No,
cetera.
we
I
did
didn't
not.
see
No.
any, but
Nope.
okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so moved by Patrick, second by Chris. Any amendments to those minutes? Any discussion? Hearing none, somebody's not muted, but hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The minutes have passed. Board orders, who's the lucky person? I calculated it right. All right, Ursula.
Laura put me in charge. All right, I move that we approve the board orders for the day range of December 18th through January 21st in the total amount of $1,104,509.46.
Second by Chris?
Second.
Yeah. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. And then our future, future agenda items, U32 schedule, you were going to fold it into more information that is coming?
Yeah,
That's what
we're
you said at the
actually,
last
we've
meeting?
got a group that are having discussions around this.
That's what you said at our last meeting to
Yep.
everybody. And then at Quality, you're going to get a big fat packet in
There's a really long report in February. I advise you read it and come with questions. It's 17 pages long.
It's really good. And then,
Julia Hewitt.
Julia, oh, you have your hand up. Sorry. Thanks, Stephen.
That's okay. I unmute myself anyway. So I'm wondering at our next meeting if it would be possible to get more details about the contingency budget, since it's certainly possible that we end up with some version of it. I'm particularly concerned about the impact on students and teachers of the cut to the Doty math teacher and interventionist position. And as a board, I think it's really important that we understand the contingency budget to the same level of detail that Stephen provided for the 3-school budget. And I think that our communities probably want to understand it too, in case it's the budget that we end up with. So would that be possible?
If that's the will of the board, then.
Yeah, I think what we had.
I would just say, I would say that much of the information that we provided in Budget 2A is the contingency budget. So those same impacts that we listed there and the information that we get, that's available on the website from our past meetings as well. So we can direct people to that to see some of those changes. There have not been a whole lot of changes otherwise.
We could, but it's not the same as hearing a presentation such as the one that you made today. That was my point.
Suzanne?
The only reason I pause and slow down is because leadership team is involved in a lot of this, especially that 2A, the contingency, and they haven't gone back and looked at it, and who knows what they've thought about in the last few months as we've talked about draft 3 and how it'll impact their schools and what else they might do. So we might want to go back and talk to them again. We just might need more time than just next meeting.
Yeah.
So that's all.
It would be best after February 10th.
Yeah, it would be best as the February 10th, because then we're not asking them to do extra work. And I know that that's a leap of faith for some people. I understand, Julia, but also is the capacity of our leadership team also running their schools. There's a lot. They're giving us enough detail as of now. So I think.
I understand this, yet it could influence people's votes on February 10th.
I do just want to say we've gone over to the 2A, sorry, thank you for the question, the contingency budget extensively, and we know that it would be gutting the services, and it would be not a decent education, unfortunately. So that's what they can, that's the information they can go by when they're voting.
Ursula?
I was going to say, from a really broad strokes point of view, we have the same amount of money, whether we have a 3 elementary school model or a 5 elementary school model. It's just how far do we have to spread it? And therefore, what do we miss, or what is the cost? And the cost is going to be, I think Zach said it in another meeting, the cost is the students. And so I think it can easily be explained why we're being asked, if we continue with a 5 elementary school model, we have to take the money we have and spread it further and stretch it further. And we have seen that limit, and now it's talking about cuts to programs, and we have talked about what those cuts are going to be.
Thank you. We have, Michaelan and then Daniel.
I do think that it would be easy to create just a table. I've seen a community member made a table from these 2 budgets that was super straightforward. I'm encouraging them to post it. They haven't yet, but I would love to see it coming from us, like 3 school versus 5 school. This is what it means. Da, 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 da. Very simple.
I mean, I suppose we could take from the minutes of a few meetings ago. We could take from the minutes from a few meetings ago when the principals presented their analysis, right? So we could take the information and put that in a chart. Is that what you're
Yeah, yes, like just a simple table.
Okay, you're in charge.
Well, I was told I wasn't allowed to post stuff by myself, but I guess if I send it to you and you okay it, then I can post it.
You can send it to us. I think what I want to move away is just the unnecessary work for our administrators right now. And unnecessary, I mean, because I think that they really, if the vote were not to be positive in one town or in both towns, I really want them to have the ability to go back and, like Ursula was saying, with that same amount pot of money, it's like, how are we going to serve our students, right? And I don't think I think what we ask them to do right now is to fund our 3 multi-town schools and give us a contingency to that, and that's where they have dedicated the time. So I think we have enough information to share with the public and the voters as it is right now, what it means. And I know that it might not be completely satisfactory to everybody, but it is concrete information that really paints the picture of what it would mean. Daniel?
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said. I think also, I mean, the financials are, like, what the budget being warned is the budget being warned, first of all. So I don't think the vast majority of the budget presentation is going to be equivalent. And then I wanted to point out, for those who haven't seen it, in the second tab, I think, of at the bottom of the first tab of the informational logistics for our meetings are the narrative letters from Jared, Alicia, and Gillian that very clearly outline the one thing that is different, which is the staffing scenarios. I mean, I guess that's not the only thing that's different, but that's the primary thing that's different. And I think they painted that picture very clearly for their respective schools. So I think that work's been done. It might be our job to make it clearer and louder for people, but yeah.
Okay. Now we can move into reflection, but I also want to tell the board that we do have an executive session tonight, and I also want to allow time for public comment, and I see some public coming in that I'm sure has some. So are there any quick reflections, Michaelan?
Natasha asked me that I read a reflection for her because she had to leave early.
Oh, sure.
I am greatly disappointed by the decision to cut the HJ Scholar in Residence. I also think that a report in the Culture Report does not do justice to the impact Shelley has had on our community and students. Additionally, I do not think this decision or the other cuts made at the middle school, high school level reflect our parameters or our core beliefs.
Thanks. Any other reflections? Zach?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a brief reflection on our process for moving and then amending the budget. I think sometimes our decision-making has gotten very muddy and it's been very unclear of what we were doing. I actually put forward a motion that I knew was going to be amended. I knew I was going to vote for the amendment, but I thought it was in the interest of having a good process. I think it worked a lot better that way. And so I want to put that out to the board to consider for the future that, sometimes it's worth, thinking about the process and saying, we're going to, just put a motion out so it's a clean motion so we can move on it, even if we say, we know we're going to change this so that everyone knows what we're talking about.
Thank you. Daniel?
Just want to acknowledge that the U32 student body's leading the way with their call for more volunteerism with the volunteering club. I think there's been a lot of conversations within the configuration debate about us as a community and us as a board working to break down the barriers to more volunteers in our schools, and I think that is something we can't lose sight of regardless of what happens in the next 2 months.
Thank you, Daniel. Diane?
Yeah, just great appreciation for Lisa. She's spent a lot of really late nights with us and is also engaged in the committee work and that, and so just appreciation for her attention to detail and her ability to be with us.
Yeah. Okay, I don't see any other hands.
And Suzanne, too.
I don't see any other hands up, and I just want to say that great appreciation for Suzanne, Stephen, and the leadership team. This has been a really hard budgeting season, and you guys have done an amazing work, and thank you. And thank you. I don't know what else to say. Just thank you. We see you, and you do a lot of work for our children. So we are grateful. We're gonna move into. We're gonna now move into public comment. So if you have a comment, please raise your hand. I don't see. Oh, yes. We have one here and one online. I'm going to start with here in person, and then I'll move with you, Emily. We need a mic. And Linda. Introduce yourself.
I'm Linda Gray from Calais. I hate to take even 90 seconds of your time, but I'm really disappointed to see you approve a budget that you only saw at this meeting. That's this complicated. That was $5 million, $4 or $5 million more than the last one that we saw. I don't know if you've forgotten that it's taxpayer money that you're working with. And when I have said over and over again, where are the administrative cuts? I wasn't talking about principals and vice principals. I was talking about central office. And I've made that point over and over again. And I really think that they can't be held harmless here when we're losing things like a math interventionist at Doty, for instance. So I just wanted to say that you should be seeing things like this at least 48 hours before you have to vote on them. There's just no way that this can be comprehended by the public or by you. I'm shaking because I have a tremor, not because I'm nervous. But this really should have come to you earlier. I'm really surprised, and I'm really happy that you put the student services position back in, but you could have made other changes as well. And I know you're just looking at a top figure here, and I hope that you hear me, that there has to be more cuts at central office. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Emily, you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Emily Connor. I am an East Montpelier parent, but I grew up in Calais. Know Linda Gray very well. Hi, Linda. So I appreciate the board's very tricky job at hand again. I've said that over and over, and I just want to say that in talking with a lot of Calais voters and community members of late, it's really the older voters that we need to be reaching right now. And there's been a lot of negative talk both on Front Porch Forum and a lot of angry voters who don't always seem to care. I'm not saying this about Linda. Linda obviously cares about what's being cut, but may not care as much about specifics of staffing, which I think we're getting really deep in the weeds on with our messaging. But they're sort of seem to care a lot more about a few questions that I want to get to in a second. But I just want to make the point that in a lot of their posting, and I hope people hear this, they say we have to vote no because we don't have all the answers right now and we can't rush this. And I just want to make a point that we can't say no, it's not, we can't delay, and we can't go back on like the status quo. We can't have this year, next year. And I hope that point gets made. We can't have this year, next year. That's not an option. So if we say no, then we lose a lot. The two things, I'm sorry, I don't have enough time, but I just want to confirm two quick things that have come up a lot. The first is that I assume that towns would have a few years to figure out a plan for their school and would not be burdened with the cost of the school suddenly. I did ask Stephen that question. I just want to hear that as a public answer, that because that's something that's come up a lot, is that towns would not be burdened with the cost of maintaining their school right away. They're not going to be suddenly burdened with it. The second is that they're concerned that future budget costs won't be saved, they won't be saved money. And I just want to make the point that future budgets will be stabilized by this vote. If we can vote yes to reconfiguration, that budgets will be stabilized in the future. Costs will, of course, continue to go up because of healthcare costs rising, because of personnel costs rising, because costs always rise. But future costs will be saved now if we reconfigure versus if we don't. And that is a fact because we are stabilizing our budget and we're making necessary changes to like stabilize our school system. So I want to make that point because that's something we can't necessarily prove for the future, but with something we've been trying to get this through for years. And this is like the edge of a cliff that we can't go over. So I just want to make that point known. And I know you guys can't confirm that, but just that is like, I just think people will appreciate hearing that, point, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. And we'll have that point made when we're finished with the one about the buildings. Jordan? I know that Jordan is the name on it is not, I see your face now.
I couldn't how to unmute myself. I'm Naomi Heindel, Jordan's my husband. Yeah. I live in Worcester. I have a Doty second grader and then someone who'll be an incoming kindergartner. And yeah, I just want to share that I guess I'm a little stumped by the like lack of the board sort of wrestling with right now the contingency budget at the same level as the 3-school budget. Well, you all have heard from me several times over the past few years. Until now, configuration has always seemed like not the right option when I kind of weigh the pros and cons. At this point, it seems like it is the right option when I think about my kids going to school and all our kids going to school. But I feel like I'm in a minority at this point when I talk to folks, and yet it seems like the conversations the board is having right now are really sort of assuming that we're going to vote for the 3-school model, and I feel really worried that we will end up with a no vote, with the vote to keep the schools open, and then a budget that haven't really grappled with what it's truly going to look like and feel like to spread out that same amount of money over 5 schools. And I guess I just want to remind you all as board members that those will still be your schools, those will still be your students. We'll still all need to hold to those same values and the same laws about what we need to provide our students with. And I feel really worried about what that's going to look like. So I would just encourage you to think about that now, because I'm really worried it's going to happen. And what will that look like? How will we actually meet our students' needs next year under that, if that does happen?
Thank you, Naomi.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands up. So the only one that Emily was asking us to, and we have added that to our questions, and it's in our questions in our website. And I just want to take the opportunity to just say, as the board again, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but our intention is, and our superintendent is here, the intention is to not, the buildings are going to be kept at the district for right now, and the idea is to use them for educational purposes. If we need them for educational purposes, the buildings are not going to be transferred to the towns. And the buildings will be transferred to the towns until the town decides that they want them to, or until we decide that we don't need them for educational purposes. So hopefully
Just a
that
note
makes
of
it clear.
clarification,
Yeah.
Meaning, even if they vote
Even if they vote to, yes, to
we
close.
retain
Yes.
the responsibility financially until they decide after they vote.
Correct.
To transfer it.
So even if they close the school, we will continue to take care of our buildings. As you guys heard, there's a part-time custodian position to take care of the buildings. We are investing in one of our buildings. We will continue to take care of our assets as a district. Any?
So I'd just like to clarify, because it almost sounds like the town could say, we want to take the building.
Not now.
That only, just even after, it's only after the district decides that they no longer want the building, that we then offer it to the town, and
Correct.
the town can choose to buy it for $1.
Yeah.
But they can't come to us and say, well, we'll take the building now.
No, correct.
It's after we decide that we don't want the building anymore.
After we decide that we don't need it for educational purposes anymore.
Right, that's right.
Yeah. Ursula?
I was simply going to clarify that it was educational or to further the district's goals and agendas.
And the town also never has to buy the building. I think that's the other part.
Yeah, that is the other point, that the town also doesn't have to buy the building even if we offered it to them.
Right. And so, again, for clarity, that no matter what the vote, the town only does not assume any financial responsibility for the building until it is offered to them and they accept it, they buy it back. Otherwise, any financial responsibility for maintaining the buildings, insuring the buildings, anything to do with the buildings is still the district's financial responsibility.
That is correct.
Can we be clearer?
No,
On that?
yeah,
Okay.
and Stephen, our
Maybe we
superintendent,
have
just said
Suzanne
that is
put her
correct.
stamp of approval on it to be.
Okay, all right.
So-
Okay.
Zach had his hand up. Oh,
Can
you're
I
good,
also
okay.
just, I shared, and I'll share it with the board for your information. So I shared online the budget impact of Budget 2A, which is the 5 elementary school model. There's an entire memo with all of that information and how the budget looks and that with the impacts of it. So I've shared that back with the people online, and the board's had that as well, but I'll reshare it with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. It's under the budget info tab. It's also under the configuration information tab for this year.
And the specific question about what we just talked about is also described in the frequently asked questions.
Yep.
But thank you for bringing that up. Now we're going to move into an executive session for personnel, and I'm wondering if you guys could make a motion, and that's just for the board.
I move that we move into executive session to just include the board to consider personnel.
Thank you. So moved by Diane, second by Chris. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, move to approve the contract for Superintendent Stephen Dellinger Pate and to authorize board chair to sign.
Second.
Who seconded?
And Liz still here, so. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. And now, a motion to?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. And everybody move to adjourn, or what was it? Just Chris and Chris and Russ? Ursula, what? Who moved it? Chris? Oh, no, my favorite.
I think there was a joint motion.